Chapter 40-60. Not only were the deity kings and gods ready to attack. Even the three deity warships in the sky had activated their formation. Their cannons were shining with divine light. In the next moment, the few hundred cannons were about to shoot out light pillars towards the entrance of Yanshu's cave. Without a doubt, there was no need for the deity kings and the 900 gods to attack. Just the divine light cannons from the three deity warships were enough to kill the 200 Nangong clan guards. The divine light that covered the sky and the divine skill that could destroy the world was about to explode. The 200 Nangong clan guards and the 4 guard commanders were so frightened that they did not know what to do. Their palms were sweating as they held on to their weapons. However, at this critical moment, the formation at the entrance of the cave was activated. The teleportation door shone with a dazzling white light. Jin Shuang, you are brazenly leading your troops to besiege Yanshu's cave. You have no respect for me at all. Following the loud and majestic voice, a burly figure passed through the light door and appeared in the sky. It was a middle-aged man from the deity clan. He wore a blue brocade robe and a luxurious divine crown. He exuded a majestic aura. He was the master of the Nangong clan, Nangong Buhua. Following that, a few more figures flew out from the light door and followed him to the scene. These middle-aged and elderly deity clan were the elders of the Nangong clan. Seeing that the patriarch and the elders had arrived, the 200 guards heaved a sigh of relief, and their hanging hearts settled back into their stomachs. Jin Shuang and the rest of the deity kings looked at Nangong Buhua. They sized him up coldly and vigilantly. Nangong Buhua stood in the sky and confronted Jin Shuang. His aura was not weak at all. Jin Shuang, you are the deputy commander of the patrol under the God Emperor. Everyone respects the God Emperor, so they give you some face. I did not expect you to be so arrogant and unscrupulous. The Nangong clan has been living in seclusion for hundreds of years and we have not done anything wrong. What right do you have to bring so many soldiers to Yanshu's cave? Do you think that the Nangong clan has been quiet for too long and you want to use the Nangong clan to establish your authority? Or do you think that the Nangong clan is easy to bully? Before the Azura God Emperor ruled the vast heaven continent, the Nangong clan was the most powerful force on this continent. Nangong Buhua's majesty and his aura were no weaker than the peak deity kings. If the Jin Shuang, Nangong Buhua, they were peak deity kings. But the one who came was Jin Shuang, the weakest of the rulers. How could Nangong Buhua take him seriously? Nangong Buhua, clan guards to Nangong Wang Buhua, Nangong. Nangong Buhua, how can you talk to the deputy commander like that? Old man Nangong, watch your words. God King. Deputy Commander, Nangong Buhua used to bow and scrape, but he's become so arrogant today. He's acting recklessly. In this subordinate's opinion, he must have been harboring the criminal and thought that he had the criminal's support. That's why he dared to be so bold. That's right. Nangong Buhua has a rebellious heart. That's why he dares to offend the Lord. The inspectors echoed each other and accused Nangong Buhua of a crime. Jin Shuang sneered in his heart but pretended to be angry. He stared at Nangong Buhua and shouted, Nangong Buhua, I don't want to waste time with you. Let's be frank. You only have 2 choices. Hand over Kenshin and I'll pardon the Nangong clan. Or you step aside and I'll bring my men into Yanshu's cave and find Kenshin. Nangong Buhua was prepared for this. He pretended to be stunned and said in surprise, Sword God. Jin Shuang, what nonsense are you talking about? Are you confused? Kenshin is a legendary expert from 1,000 years ago. Wasn't he killed by the 5 God Emperor? Could it be that those who had already fallen could still come back to life? Jin Shuang. Although I've offended you, you can't use such a ridiculous reason to take revenge on the Nangong clan. If you insist on hurting the Nangong clan, don't blame me for fighting back and defending the dignity of the Nangong clan with my life. Nangong Buhua said righteously. He even took out a divine sword and held it in his hand. He looked at Jin Shuang with murderous intent. Anyone who saw this scene would be convinced by his acting skills and would think that he had been wronged. However, Jin Shuang and the rest did not believe him. They all sneered. Nangong Buhua, stop pretending. Jin Shuang did not want to waste time with Nangong Buhua. He felt that Nangong Buhua must be up to something. Therefore, he gave an ultimatum. I'll give you one last chance. Either you hand over Kenshin and I'll forgive your crime. Or I'll capture Kenshin personally. The Nangong clan will be buried with him. After saying this, Jin Shuang pulled out the sword at his waist and pointed it at Nangong Buhua. He was emitting a murderous intent. 42 godly kings and 900 godly monarchs had also accumulated their strength to the peak and were ready to attack. As everyone mobilized their divine power, their aura rose. An invisible force field appeared and a violent hurricane blew. Everyone from the Nangong clan had their hearts in their mouths as they secretly wiped their sweat. No matter what, the Nangong clan was in a passive position. They were at a disadvantage in terms of numbers. In the next moment, as long as Jin Shuang and the rest attacked, the Nangong clan would suffer heavy casualties. This battle was unavoidable. It was useless even if Nangong Buhua acted dumb. Since that was the case, he could only grit his teeth and make a decision. He sent a message to the 4 guard commanders and ordered, "What are you waiting for? Retreat to Yenshu's cave immediately. I'll cover you." The 4 guard commanders and 200 guards knew that Nangong Buhua was going to give up the formation plate and retreat to the cave to defend. Therefore, everyone turned around without hesitation. Like an arrow leaving the bow, they rushed towards the blazing white light door. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. In the blink of an eye, dozens of guards passed through the light door and escaped into Yenshu's cave. The 4 guard commanders were aware that they were not in a hurry to escape. Instead, they held their divine weapons tightly and helped the guards to cover the rear. Nangong Buhua and a few elders were the same. They formed a line of defense and blocked the guards behind. Although the guards were of lower status and could not be compared to the guard commanders and elders, they were still descendants of the Nangong clan. However, they were also descendants of the Nangong clan. Nangong Buhua naturally had to protect them. Seeing the guards escaping, Jin Shuang knew that Nangong Buhua was determined to resist. He did not waste any more time and gave the order to attack. Kill. Following his command, the 42 divine kings and 900 Sir gods released their divine power with all their might. They used their earth-shattering skills and charged towards the entrance of Yenshu's cave. The 3 divine warships also opened fire and shot out hundreds of divine power light pillars. Chapter 4061. Boom. 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 Amidst the earth-shattering noises, thousands of divine light blades and overwhelming wind, fire, and lightning rained down on the entrance of the grotto heaven. Hundreds of divine light pillars shot out by the 3 divine warships also hit the formation plate at the entrance. The first to bear the brunt of the attack was not the 100 guards who could not escape in time. Instead, it was Nangong Buhua, a few elders, and 4 commanders of the guards who were blocking the way. Even though everyone had already taken out various divine weapons and life-saving divine weapons and used all their defensive techniques to form a huge 5-colored light shield. However, a round of attacks from more than 900 experts and powerhouses shattered the 5-colored light barrier on the spot. Then, more than 500 divine light pillars drowned Nangong Buhua and the others. Boom. 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 A series of loud booms reverberated between heaven and earth. The dazzling divine light covered a radius of tens of thousands of miles and destroyed many mountains and forests in the surroundings. Nangong Buhua successfully blocked the hundreds of divine light pillars with his strength of 9th Heaven Divine King and 4 Upper King level divine weapons. Not only was he unharmed, but he also protected dozens of guards. The elders were also powerful as they were all Upper Divine Kings. They successfully defended themselves against the attacks of the divine warships and were not injured. Moreover, they had extra strength to protect dozens of guards. But the 4 commanders of the guards could not even protect themselves. They were all injured by the divine warships. More than 30 of the guards who could not escape in time were severely injured. Their bodies were badly mutilated. More than 20 guards were unlucky. They were killed on the spot. Not even their bones were left. Dark red blood streaked across the sky and splashed onto the formation plate. The air was filled with the smell of blood. The divine kings and Sir Gods under Jin Shuang's command were even more motivated. They roared and started the second round of attack. Nangong Buhua and a few elders gritted their teeth in anger. Killing intent surged from their bodies. But they were not blinded by hatred and anger. They did not rush out of the formation plate to counterattack. They continued to cast spells to cover the retreat of the remaining guards. From the looks of it, it would take at most 2 breaths for the remaining dozens of guards to return to Yenshu's cave. By then, Nangong Buhua and the rest would return to the Yenshu cave. As long as they closed the heavenly passage's entrance, they would be able to hold on for a very long time, leaving Jin Shuang and the others helpless. Thinking of this, Jin Shuang didn't care about her status anymore. She waved her sword with all her might. Nangong Buhua, don't even think about escaping. Give me your life. Jin Shuang shouted angrily. His strength at the peak of the 8th level of the Divine King realm burst out completely at this moment. He slashed out 6 sword lights at Nangong Buhua. If it was any other time, Nangong Buhua would not have taken him seriously and could easily defeat him. However, Nangong Buhua not only had to resist the siege of many experts, but he also had to divert his attention to cover the escape of the guards. When Jin Shuang waved her sword and attacked, he no longer had any extra strength to resist. Pang pang pang. With a series of muffled sounds, Nangong Buhua was sent flying by the sword light and smashed into the blazing white light gate. The blue brocade robe he was wearing was torn into rags by the sword light, making him look very miserable. Cough cough, Nangong Buhua was also injured. He coughed violently and blood flowed out of his nose and mouth. Now that he was injured, there was a gap in the defensive light shield. The first round of attacks from the 42 God Kings struck more than 30 guards, blasting them to smithereens. Fortunately, the remaining guards had escaped back to Yenshu's grotto heaven. Now, only Nangong Buhua, a few elders and 4 commanders of the guards were left on the formation board. Nangong Buhua was so angry that his face turned black. A smear of blood appeared in his eyes. He glared at Jin Shuang and the others and roared, "Jin Shuang, just you wait. Very soon, I will make you pay with your blood." After saying this, he led the elders and the commanders of the guards to escape toward the blazing white light gate without hesitation. Jin Shuang and the 7 inspectors were filled with anxiety. They immediately shouted and joined hands to cast spells to attack the white light gate. They wanted to destroy the divine formation at the grotto heaven's entrance and stop Nangong Buhua and the others from escaping. They watched as divine spell shadows fell from the sky like a torrential flood. If Nangong Buhua and the others dodged, the blazing white light gate would be destroyed. However, if they did not dodge, the consequences would be obvious. At the moment of life and death, Nangong Buhua decisively gave the order and roared, "You all go first. I will cover you." As he roared, he used all his strength to activate 4 king-level upper divine artifacts to block above his head. He wanted to use his own strength to block the attacks of the many experts and cover the escape of the elders and the commanders of the guards. This scene caused the Nangong clan's elders and guard commanders to be incomparably moved. Their eyes even turned red. Even the divine kings and some divine monarchs under Jin Shuang admired Nangong Buhua. All this time, their superiors, such as the inspectors and the deputy commander, Jin Shuang, had been bossing them around and looking down on them. How could they count on these high and mighty nobles to protect them at the moment of life and death? They did not even dare to dream about it. At this moment, they even envied the people of the Nangong clan. With such a powerful and loyal patriarch, the Nangong clan must be very united, right? Bang bang bang. Boom boom boom. In the next moment, the overwhelming radiance of divine skills sent Nangong Buhua's 4 divine artifacts flying and drowned his figure. Amidst the dazzling multicolored light, he was blasted away, rolling and crashing into the distance. Amidst the series of loud noises, his muffled groans could be heard. There was a trail of blood at the edge of the disc. It was the blood that Nangong Buhua had just spat out. Although he was very powerful, second only to a peak divine king. However, no matter how powerful he was, he could not withstand the combined attacks of the 7 inspectors and Jin Shuang. He could not withstand the combined attacks of dozens of divine king experts. After being hit by the overwhelming radiance of divine skills, his injuries worsened and his strength decreased greatly. Fortunately, his sacrifice was worthwhile. The elders and the 4 commanders of the guards took the opportunity to pass through the blazing white light gate and escape back to Yenshu's grotto heaven. Now, only Nangong Buhua was still outside the grotto heaven. Jin Shuang and the 7 inspectors smiled maliciously and shouted loudly as they charged towards Nangong Buhua for the 3rd round of attacks. Let's go together and capture Nangong Buhua. He is alone and has no helpers. Quickly capture him. As long as we capture Nangong Buhua, the Nangong clan will have to surrender. Everyone, let's go together. We can't let him escape no matter what. With so many people attacking Nangong Buhua and him being severely injured, wouldn't it be easy to capture him? Everyone thought that Nangong Buhua would not be able to escape. Unexpectedly, just as everyone was approaching him, he suddenly took out an ancient linen banner and chanted a strange incantation. Swoosh! The ancient linen banner released a large cloud of grey fog and swallowed Nangong Buhua's figure. Chapter 4062. In less than an instant, Nangong Buhua had disappeared right in front of everyone's eyes. Not only did he disappear, but so did the linen banner. The only things left in the sky were Nangong Buhua's 2 divine weapons. There were originally 4 divine weapons, but before he escaped, he took back 2 of them. Jin Shuang, the 7 patrols, and many deity kings were stunned. Everyone stared at the empty sky and furrowed their brows. Their expressions were extremely ugly. Damn it! It seems like he was prepared to use that divine weapon to escape. Damn bastard, even if he escapes back to Yenshu's grotto heaven, he can't escape death. The few patrols were filled with shame and anger as they gritted their teeth and cursed. Jin Shuang felt the same, but he could still maintain his calm and control. After a few moments of silence, he led everyone back to the entrance of the grotto heaven. This time, he did not waste any time. He pointed at the formation at the entrance and ordered, "I'll give you half a day to crack it or break through it." When Nangong Buhua took out the linen banner, the entrance to Yenshu's grotto heaven was closed. That linen banner of his definitely had a special effect, which was why it was able to help him escape. Jin Shuang and the 900 deity kings and Sir gods did not have the ability to travel through space and enter Yenshu's grotto heaven. Even Ji Tianqing did not have this ability. Therefore, Jin Shuang and the rest could only crack the formation of Yenshu's grotto heaven or break through the formation to enter. Following his order, the 7 patrols and 42 deity kings immediately got busy. They carefully observed the formation at the entrance of the grotto heaven, thinking and deducing a way to crack it. The 900 Sir gods were on standby. Jin Shuang frowned as he stared at the sky, thinking about his next move. In fact, he also knew that he was sent by the imperial preceptor to spy on the military situation. In fact, he and the other 900 people in the field might even become cannon fodder. However, he could not disobey the order, he could only follow it. Nangong Buhua's reaction seemed normal to him. If the imperial tutor and the Meng Shuai did not have accurate information to prove that Kenshin was hiding in Yenshu's cave, he might have believed Nangong Buhua. As early as a few months ago, Kenshin had already escaped back to the realm of the gods, but he hid in the cave of Yenshu and did not show himself. Just as the God Emperor had sent back, Kenshin was heavily injured and was currently in seclusion to heal himself. If not, Nangong Buhua would not have tried his best to escape back to the cave of Yenshu to stall for time. This is my only chance to kill Kenshin. I have to rush into Yenshu's grotto heaven before he recovers and take him down. Thinking of this, Jin Shuang turned her head and glanced at the 900 Sir Gods. Her eyes flashed with worry. However, the Nangong clan is an ancient clan after all. They have a very deep foundation. If Nangong Buhua was determined to protect Kenshin, the 40 god kings and 900 god lords might not be able to defeat the Nangong clan. There is a high possibility that both sides will suffer great losses and we will all die in the cave of Yenshu. No, I have to think of a way to prevent an all-out war with the Nangong clan. It would be best if the Nangong clan could stand aside and watch us kill Kenshin. At this moment, Jin Shuang was deeply anxious and uneasy. She hated the fact that she had brought too few people with her. Even if she were to send a message to gather more domain masters and god kings, it would be too late. At the same time, in the depths of the cave of Yenshu. In the sky above the palaces. Swoosh! A cloud of gray fog exploded in the sky and a blue figure appeared out of nowhere. The figure's clothes were ragged and his hair was disheveled. His entire body was covered in blood and he looked rather pathetic. He was the heavily injured Nangong Buhua. Not far away in the sky and the palaces below, a few groups of guards noticed him and greeted him in surprise. "Master, how did you get injured? Patriarch, are your injuries serious? Quickly send the master back to the secret room to heal." As they shouted, the guards wanted to support Nangong Buhua and send him back to his residence on the main peak. However, Nangong Buhua waved his hand and did not allow them to support him. He said with a hoarse voice, "My injuries are not serious. Don't be so flustered. Quickly inform Lady and a few elders to come to the Great Light Hall for a meeting." Two groups of guards acknowledged the order and turned to carry out their mission. The other group of guards guarded Nangong Buhua and followed him to the main peak and entered the Great Light Hall. After sitting down on the main seat in the hall, Nangong Buhua took out 2 divine elixirs and consumed them to suppress his injuries. Then, he took out a new set of robes and jade crown. After shooting out a few rays of divine light, he changed into a new set of clothes. Although his face was a little pale and his mind was a little weak, at least he didn't look as miserable as before. Not long after, Nangong Nihuang walked into the hall quickly. Sensing that Nangong Buhua's aura was different, she asked worriedly, "Father, are you injured? How is your injury? Is it serious?" Nangong Buhua shook his head and comforted her. After waiting for a while, the elders arrived at the Great Light Hall. As soon as they met, Nangong Buhua asked, "Where are the guards? Are they okay?" The gray-haired great elder quickly reported, "Don't worry, master. The 120 guards who survived have safely returned to Yenshu's cave. The 4 commanders and 120 guards have all suffered either light or heavy injuries. They have already returned to their respective residences and are circulating their martial arts to treat their injuries." Nangong Buhua was relieved and said in a serious tone, "Although I was prepared, I did not expect the Azura God Emperor's lackeys to come so quickly. Although we have all retreated and closed the entrance of the cave. With Jin Shuang and the others' strength and methods, they will be able to break the formation and enter Yenshu's cave within a day. At that time, we will only be able to fight them to a draw even if we use all our strength. I am afraid that after the battle, more than half of our people will be dead or injured. At this point, Nangong Buhua sighed heavily. The elders' hearts were heavy and they frowned anxiously. A few elders hurriedly suggested. Master, it has been 2.5 months. Kenshin should be coming out soon, right? The situation is urgent. I am afraid that only Kenshin can resolve it and not let thousands of our people die. Master, why don't we knock on Kenshin's door now? Before Nangong Buhua could say anything, Nangong Nihuang rejected the suggestion. No. Kenshin is still in seclusion. The 3-month time limit is almost up. He must be at a critical juncture. How can he be disturbed? If he is unable to recover or his strength is affected, won't we be sinners? The elders frowned and wanted to refute. Nangong Nihuang continued, what's more, the Nangong clan has decided to follow Kenshin and help him with all our strength. It is not just words. We must show real action. Today, Jin Shuang came. We have not started the battle yet and we want to awaken Kenshin to deal with him. If we meet Qi Yan, Meng Shuai, and the imperial tutor in the future, won't Kenshin have to deal with them? What else do we have to do? Chapter 4063. Nangong Nihuang's words stunned the elders. Although her words were simple and straightforward, there was no reason behind it. However, it was this simple logic that was enlightening to the apathetic, causing the elders to feel ashamed. The atmosphere in the hall was a little awkward. The elders looked at each other and did not know what to say. Finally, Nangong Buhua made up his mind and spoke. Nihuang is right. Since we, the Nangong clan, are trusted and valued by Kenshin, we must not let him down. When encountering difficulties and dangers, we should first think of how to solve them. We should not let Kenshin solve everything while we hide behind to ensure our safety. I believe that Kenshin has the ability to solve it. But if that is the case, what is the meaning of our existence? What qualifications do we have to be trusted and entrusted with important tasks by Kenshin? These sincere and earnest words made the elders nod their heads in agreement. They no longer mentioned the matter of awakening the sword god. Nangong Buhua ordered again, immediately gather all the guards, young disciples and deacons of our clan. Enter a state of battle and protect Yenshu Grotto Heaven. If we protect Yenshu Grotto Heaven, we will be able to buy more time for Kenshin. Even if there is more blood and sacrifice, we will not back down. Nangong Nihuang and the elders acknowledged the order and quickly left the Great Light Hall to carry out their mission. Soon, they passed down Nangong Buhua's order. A loud and urgent horn sounded in Yenshu Grotto Heaven. Clan members gathered from all directions and those who were cultivating were also awakened. In just an hour, tens of thousands of Nangong clan members were fully armed and gathered at the square of each mountain peak. Nangong Buhua sat in the Great Light Hall and commanded the 7 elders and dozens of deacons to give out a series of orders. The tens of thousands of Nangong clan members were divided into dozens of teams. Under the leadership of the elders and deacons, they rushed to different places in Yenshu Grotto Heaven to carry out different tasks. The first task was to activate the formation of Yenshu Grotto Heaven and inject divine power into each formation base to strengthen the defense. Only by doing so could the defensive power of the formation be strengthened and delay for a longer time. Just this mission alone had cost 49 teams and almost 6,000 Nangong tribesmen. Next, a few elders and a dozen deacons had to lead more than 3,000 clansmen to set up a few defensive formations with a circumference of 10,000 miles. This mission was personally presided over by Nangong Nihuang, with the full cooperation of several elders. The defensive formation was to cover the mountains and protect the Nangong clan's residents. Once the defensive formation of Yenshu's cave was breached, Jin Shuang and close to 1,000 experts would charge in. At least there would be a second barrier to protect the Nangong clan. When the entire Nangong clan was mobilized and did their best to support and set up all kinds of great formations, the Nangong clan's grand formation had already been set up. At the entrance of Yenshu's cave, the 7 inspectors, 42 divine kings and 900 gods under Jin Shuang's command were also in a state of bustle. Many divine kings joined forces and understood the mystery of Yenshu's heavenly cave's defensive formation. They began to research on how to break it. Although there was only one formation in Yenshu's fairyland, there were many people who studied the formation. Everyone had their own thoughts and opinions, and their attainments in the Tao of formations were also different. Hence, with the 7 inspectors and 42 divine kings added together, there were more than 30 different suggestions and ideas. Every suggestion sounded reasonable, and there seemed to be a need to put it into practice. However, time did not allow them to do so. Everyone had to quickly come up with an effective plan. A few inspectors and many domain lords argued incessantly. The weaker god kings were basically unable to get a word in edgewise. As such, there were more than 10 suggestions and ideas that were eliminated. However, there were still more than 20 suggestions that needed to be filtered. When Jin Shuang saw this, she frowned and her face darkened. She showed an unhappy expression. When the 7 inspectors saw this, they knew that the deputy commander was unhappy. They did not waste any more time talking to the domain masters and divine kings, and directly eliminated their suggestions. Those domain masters and stronger divine kings were naturally full of grievances, but there was nothing they could do. Who asked the inspectors to have a higher status than them? Even so, the 7 inspectors held different opinions and still needed to be filtered. The 42 god kings had all stepped aside, leaving only the 7 patrol envoys who were still arguing endlessly. Jin Shuang immediately became angry and scolded the 7 inspectors to their faces. The 7 of them immediately became obedient and agreed with a certain inspector's suggestion. In fact, everyone knew that the inspector's suggestion was the best plan. However, everyone had the intention to compete and show off. They were not willing to be outdone. Since Jin Shuang was angry, they did not dare to continue arguing. If they angered Jin Shuang, then the losses would outweigh the gains. Moreover, if they used the inspector's suggestion, even if there was a problem, they could not be blamed. Just like this, the 7 inspectors decided on the plan to break the array. They led the 42 divine kings and began to use their techniques. As time passed, everyone threw themselves into the work of breaking the array. They were especially serious and worked hard. Only the 3 divine warships were idle and were sent away by Jin Shuang. They flew around the entrance of the grotto heaven, inspecting the situation within 100,000 li to prevent other powers from coming to reinforce the Nangong clan. Unknowingly, half a day passed. Although many divine kings and divine monarchs were busy in full swing and looked very serious. In fact, the task of breaking the array had just started not long ago. They were not even halfway done. After Jin Shuang observed carefully, he was so angry that he scolded the divine kings again. He was very clear that the more time they wasted, the more danger they would be in. However, the abilities of the 7 inspectors were limited. No matter how much he scolded them, it was useless. Helplessly, he could only join the ranks of breaking the array and personally cast a spell to break the array. In fact, Jin Shuang's worries were not without reason. Nangong Buhua also thought of sending a message to other powers to ask them to reinforce the Yenshu Grotto heaven. However, after much consideration, he gave up on this plan. The Nangong clan did not have many allies. There were only 2 or 3 ancient clans and 2 sections. Not to mention the 2 sects, they did not have enough experts and masters. Even if they came, they would only be sending themselves to their deaths. As for the 2 or 3 ancient clans, among the 5 masked experts, 2 of them were the clan leaders of the ancient clans. Even if Nangong Buhua used his toes to think, he knew that they would definitely watch from the sidelines. They would take this opportunity to observe the Nangong clan's reaction and test the Kenshin's depth and details. After getting an answer, it would be easier for them to negotiate with the Kenshin in the future. They could not wait for such an opportunity. Why would they send reinforcements? Chapter 40-64. No one could help the Nangong clan get through this crisis. In the end, they had to rely on themselves. Nangong Buhua gave up on asking for help. He simply treated his injuries and devoted himself to setting up the array. At the same time, he was also paying attention to Ji Tianqing's movements and the situation at the door of the secret chamber. Time passed by in torment. Very quickly, another half a day passed. Nangong Nihuang led many elders and Nangong clan members to build a defensive array with a radius of 10,000 miles. Although this was only an upper-grade king-level divine array, it could withstand the siege of Jin Shuang and the army for a short period of time. Immediately after, thousands of Nangong clan members cast spells to support the defensive array and its power reached its peak. This made it increasingly difficult for Jin Shuang and thousands of experts to break the array. Jin Shuang's 1 day's time limit had passed, but only 1/3 of the array had been broken. Moreover, as time passed, the difficulty of breaking the array would increase. Because, while Jin Shuang's side was desperately trying to break the array, Nangong Nihuang and thousands of Nangong clan members were also desperately trying to repair the array. After a day, the sense of crisis and urgency brought by Jin Shuang and the army had lessened. This caused the morale of Jin Shuang's side to plummet, and the Nangong clan members also heaved a sigh of relief. Since the matter could not be solved in 1 day, then they would use 2 or 3 days to slowly solve it. Jin Shuang also contacted the domain masters of the surrounding domains, asking them to constantly monitor the movements of the surrounding forces. Those domain masters sent messages one after another, reporting the results of their investigations. The results showed that the ancient clans and top forces of the surrounding domains did not have any unusual movements, and were in a state of observation. This made Jin Shuang secretly relieved, and she was even less anxious. At the same time, Ji Tianqing had already cultivated in the distorted spacetime for 10 years and a few months. Within these 10 years, he had already refined 400 pieces of divine persona fragments, and obtained immeasurable benefits. Firstly, his strength had increased. Now that he had reached the peak of the divine king realm, he was stabilizing his realm after breaking through. Secondly, he had taken more than 100 divine Tao laws from the divine persona fragments and turned them into his own. Now, the number of divine Tao laws that he had mastered had successfully reached 1,200. In this world, there had never been a divine king who could grasp so many divine Tao laws like him. Without a doubt, his true combat strength had long since surpassed the God-King realm and was infinitely close to the God-Emperor realm. However, what surprised him was that, even if he returned to the realm of peak Divine King, he was also unable to sense the power of heavenly Tao, let alone condense a trace of Tao runes. Back when he was still Kenshin, he had already grasped a sliver of the heavenly law's power and had even formed the Taoist rhyme. Now that he had returned to his peak, with his previous cultivation experience, he should be able to smoothly grasp the power of the heavenly Tao. But the truth, how could it be like this? Ji Tianqing was puzzled. When he recalled that he had been neglected by the heavenly Tao and had never received any merit rewards, he felt a little depressed. Even though he was still in a state of cultivation, he was still thinking that he had to find out the reason in the future. The battle between the Nangong clan and the Jin Shuang army continued. Another day passed. Jin Shuang and the others had already completed half of their task of breaking the formation. It was obvious that the Nangong clan's efficiency of repairing the formation could not keep up. After all, repairing was not as simple as destroying. Moreover, the overall strength of the Nangong clan was not as good as the 900 Sir gods led by Jin Shuang. Everyone knew that it was only a matter of time before the defense formation of the Yenshu Grotto was broken. Nangong Nihuang, a few elders, and dozens of deacons had finished their tasks and were conserving their energy, waiting for the arrival of the final battle. Nangong Buhua was also recuperating, trying his best to recover his strength. Everyone understood that in about 1 or 2 days, the bitter battle would arrive. Could the Nangong clan resolve this crisis, and be valued by Kenshin in the future and become the #1 hero? It all depended on the performance of the Nangong clan in this battle. Therefore, the atmosphere in the Yenshu Grotto became solemn, and the Nangong clan became unprecedentedly united. Just like that, 2 tense and depressing days passed. On the morning of the 5th day, there was a burst of cheers at the entrance of the Yenshu Grotto. Following a series of ping 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 sounds, the defense formation of the Yenshu Grotto was finally broken by Jin Shuang and the others. Thousands of divine lights lit up in the sky. Those were the veins of the defense formation, and they were collapsing one by one. The white light door at the entrance also appeared, but it was broken into pieces, turning into divine light fragments, and scattered between heaven and earth. An ugly, dark hole appeared. That was the opening of the defense formation, like a huge passageway, connecting the realm of gods and the Yenshu Grotto. The 7 inspectors and the many godly kings and godly lords cheered excitedly as they quickly retreated. Jin Shuang, however, was not happy. Her face was still gloomy, and there was a tinge of worry in her eyes. This was because the original plan to break the defense formation of the Yenshu Grotto in 1 day took a total of 4 days to complete. In addition, the Nangong clan's reaction was too calm, as if they had a card up their sleeve, and were not worried at all. Most importantly, these deity kings and Sir gods had been casting spells to break the defense formation for 4 days, and their strength had decreased tremendously. When everyone rushed into the Yenshu Grotto and fought with the Nangong clan, they would definitely be affected. However, things had already come to this point, and there was no use worrying and anxiety. They could only take 1 step at a time. After everyone had retreated, the 3 divine warships flew back, and arranged themselves into a formation in the sky. Hundreds of cannons extended out, and began to accumulate a vast amount of divine power, and lit up with a blinding divine light. Boom! 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 In the next moment, hundreds of divine power light pillars burst out at the same time, and with the power to destroy everything, they violently blasted towards the opening. Divine light exploded in the field, and the light fragments scattered everywhere. The opening, which was originally 10 feet wide, suddenly expanded by more than 10 times, and became 100 feet wide. The veins of the formation around the opening were also severely damaged, and they all broke and collapsed. With such a huge opening in the defense formation, no matter how hard the Nangong clan tried to repair it, it would not be able to recover in a short period of time. At the same time, the 3 divine warships' simultaneous bombardment could prevent the Nangong clan from setting up an ambush on the other side of the opening. When the divine light in the sky dispersed, and the earth-shattering sound disappeared, Jin Shuang then gave the order to attack. Charge in, kill. As her voice fell, the 7 patrol led the deity kings, and rushed into the opening, and rushed into the Yenshu Grotto. After everyone had entered the Yenshu Grotto, Jin Shuang then followed in. Only 3 divine warships remained outside to guard the opening, and to assist Jin Shuang and the rest at any time. As for Jin Shuang, the deity kings, and Sir gods, they rushed into the Yenshu Grotto with murderous intent, but when they looked around, they realized that the surroundings were empty. They originally thought that the Nangong clan would send a large number of troops to ambush them, and attack them head-on. Now, it seemed that the Nangong clan did not intend to take the initiative to attack, and were determined to defend with all their might. Chapter 4065. Since the Nangong clan was not going to fight them head-on, Jin Shuang was naturally relieved. He led the 900 divine monarch and divine king experts as they rushed into the depths of the grotto heaven. Of course, he did not let his guard down. He was always on guard against the Nangong clan's schemes. Along the way, the 7 inspectors spread out to monitor the surrounding situation in case the Nangong clan launched a surprise attack. And reality proved that after flying for hundreds of thousands of miles and arriving at the Nangong clan's palaces, they did not encounter any surprise attacks or trouble. Looking from afar, between the mountain peaks, they could faintly see the silhouettes of palaces and residences. Jin Shuang waved his hand, indicating for everyone to slow down and spread out, slowly approaching the area. We advanced all the way and did not encounter any resistance from the Nangong clan. It seems that they have gathered here and are planning to hold their ground and resist stubbornly. Everyone, be careful. They did not set up any traps elsewhere, so they will definitely do something here. Jin Shuang held his divine sword and slowly flew towards the palaces. He transmitted his voice to remind everyone to be careful. The 7 inspectors and divine kings said they understood and obeyed, but they did not take it seriously. They did not encounter any resistance and thought that the Nangong clan was terrified and did not dare to fight them. As a matter of fact, some of the inspectors and god kings even imagined that the Nangong clan might hand over the sword god to protect themselves once they revealed their identities. If that was the case, they would have done a great service without any effort. But the reality was different from what they imagined. When Jin Shuang and the others approached the palaces, they were still 10,000 miles away. Between the mountains and rivers around the palace complex, divine light suddenly soared into the sky, forming a huge 5-colored light screen. Shwa! In the blink of an eye, a 5-colored light screen with a radius of 10,000 miles appeared, enveloping nearly 100 mountains. The 5-colored light screen was like a canopy in the sky. As the array revolved, it flashed with a dazzling light and released a vigorous divine power fluctuation. Thus, the 10,000 miles of space within the light screen was tightly protected. Immediately after, thousands of Nangong clan members flew out from the various mountains, palaces and residences, lining up in the sky. They formed a formation in the sky and divided into hundreds of teams. They joined forces to cast spells to support the operation of the formation and increase its power. At the same time, their bodies were filled with terrifying killing intent as they glared at Jin Shuang and the others. The expressions of the 7 inspectors and the god kings changed when they saw this. They frowned heavily. This, another great array. Oh my god! We won't have to spend a few more days to break this formation, right? Damn it! Why were the people of the Nangong clan so cowardly? Can't we have a good fight? You cowards, do you only know how to hide in the formation and drag out an ignoble existence? Thinking back to the experience of breaking the array a few days ago, the 7 inspectors and the god kings all had headaches. They cursed angrily, wishing they could kill all of the Nangong clan members. Originally, they had used 4 days to break the formation, so they were already exhausted. It was not easy for them to enter Yenshu's cave heaven and fight with the Nangong clan. They did not expect to have to break the formation again. Many of them had a mental breakdown. However, the Nangong clan members in the 5-colored light barrier could not hear their shouts, so they did not react. However, Jin Shuang frowned and shouted at the Nangong clan members in the 5-colored light barrier, Nangong Buhua. Are you really going to be a coward? If you are still a person, show yourself. I want to have a good talk with you. There was no doubt about the outcome. The Nangong clan members in the 5-colored light barrier did not react, and Nangong Buhua did not show himself. Jin Shuang thought that Nangong Buhua was purposely avoiding him, but in fact, Nangong Buhua was healing himself. Nangong Nihuang, a few elders, and many deacons were busy deploying troops to increase the power of the defensive formation. Therefore, Jin Shuang shouted outside the formation for a while, but no one responded to him. Jin Shuang, who was ignored, could be said to have lost all face. She was ashamed and resentful. In his anger, he said ruthlessly, Nangong Buhua, I gave you one last chance to live, but you avoided me. You want to play dead with me? Fine, I will fulfill your wish. Within a day, I will break through this turtle shell and kill you, you old turtle. Following his order, the 7 inspectors and 42 divine kings immediately spread out and observed the structure of the defensive formation. The 900 divine monarch experts also spread out and consciously formed a formation. Although everyone was unwilling to continue breaking the formation, they felt a headache just thinking about it. However, the deputy commander had suffered such humiliation, so they naturally had to listen to the order and break the formation as soon as possible to kill Nangong Buhua to vent their anger for the deputy commander. However, what they did not expect was that Jin Shuang waved his hand again and asked in a low voice, "What are you doing?" "I am not talking about breaking the formation, I am talking about breaking it. Directly breaking it. Do you understand?" The 7 inspectors and 42 divine kings were stunned for a moment before reacting. Seeing Jin Shuang's anxious and murderous appearance, everyone felt guilty and fearful, and subconsciously shrunk their necks. Then, everyone clenched their blades and changed into a new formation, waiting for Jin Shuang's order. Seeing everyone in a charging formation, Jin Shuang's expression eased a little, he waved his sword and ordered, "Everyone, listen to my order, break this formation at all costs. In one day, I will kill my way into the Nangong clan's light palace. Roar! Roar roar! Kill! Kill kill kill! Charge!" The 7 inspectors, 42 divine kings, and 900 divine monarchs were all fired up, they let out deafening roars and attacked with all their might. Even Jin Shuang waved his divine sword and roared as he attacked. Everyone unleashed their strongest divine power and unleashed their most terrifying divine techniques. They unleashed a barrage of sword lights, wind, fire, and lightning that blotted out the sky. Bang! Bang bang bang! Boom boom boom! In the next moment, thousands of divine techniques landed on the 5-colored light barrier, exploding with deafening sounds. Divine light fragments that covered the sky flew everywhere. The raging shockwave carried countless fragments of divine light as it spread out in all directions, destroying a few nearby mountain ranges. The light barrier that was thousands of miles wide also trembled, exploding with divine light. Seeing that the first round of attacks from Jin Shuang and the others were close to the limit of the formation's defense, the light barrier was about to crack. The thousands of Nangong clan members revealed shocked and worried expressions. Many of the Nangong clan members who had lower mental fortitude let out cries of surprise. Luckily, there were 3 elders and 20 deacons present, they quickly comforted everyone. Under their command, the thousands of Nangong clan members activated their divine power and poured it into the defensive formation. Thus, the defensive formation quickly dissolved the shockwaves and became as stable as a rock. Chapter 4066. Boom! Boom boom boom! Soon, Jin Shuang and the 900 godly kings and godly monarchs launched a second round of attacks. Once again, divine techniques, wind, fire, and lightning filled the sky. Like a flood, they rained down on the 5-colored light barrier, creating earth-shattering explosions. The enormous sound waves spread for tens of thousands of miles before dissipating. The violent shock waves, wrapped in divine light fragments, swept across 80,000 miles. As a result, the mountains in this area collapsed one after another, and the mountain range also collapsed one after another, turning into a desolate ruin. Yellow sand filled the sky, covering the sun, causing everything within tens of thousands of miles to be blurry. The 5-colored light barrier once again withstood the fierce attacks. It only trembled and shook violently, but no cracks appeared. The thousands of Nangong clan members finally let out a sigh of relief. Previously, they were worried that this hastily constructed array would not be able to withstand the attacks of Jin Shuang's army. But now, it seemed that the efforts of the young miss, the elders, and the deacons were not in vain. As time passed, Jin Shuang and the 900 godly kings and godly monarchs continued their attacks. The loud rumbling noises did not stop, and the flashing divine light and devastating shockwaves did not stop either. The 5-colored light barrier within 10,000 miles shook more and more violently. 4 hours later, the light barrier's power gradually decreased, and cracks began to appear under the attacks. However, the Nangong clan members desperately repaired the array, replenishing its power so that it could still hold on. 6 hours later, more and more cracks appeared on the formation, densely packed. No matter how hard the Nangong clan members tried, the speed of repairing the cracks could not keep up with the destruction of Jin Shuang's army. 12 hours later, half a day had passed. The cracks on the 5-colored light barrier had already turned into dozens of cracks. The long cracks were dozens of feet long, and the short ones were more than a foot wide. With so many cracks, many godly king experts could shrink their bodies and pass through them, entering the defensive array. But Jin Shuang and the 7 inspectors did not do so. It was too risky. Once they entered, they would be surrounded by thousands of Nangong clan members. It would be like catching a turtle in a jar. If Nangong Buhua, Nangong Nihuang, and the others were hiding in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity, then they would be sending themselves to their deaths. The safest way was to wait for the army to break through the defensive formation before charging in together. Unknowingly, a day had passed just like that. Finally, the defensive formation was riddled with holes and was on the verge of collapse. At this time, Jin Shuang suddenly roared. Holding her sword with both hands, she descended from the sky and slashed at the defensive array that was on the verge of collapse. The inspectors, godly kings, and godly lords all made way as their gazes landed on him. Even the Nangong clansmen in the array looked at Jin Shuang, who was descending from the sky, with deep worry and fear. Ha! Jin Shuang roared, holding the sword with both hands and slashing out 1,000-foot-long, dazzling divine sword light. With a loud boom, the giant sword slashed the 5-colored light shield and split it in half. God knows how many fragments of divine light were sent flying to both sides, creating a terrifying hurricane. More than half of the defensive formation had collapsed, but the power of the massive sword didn't diminish in the slightest as it struck the ground again. 1,000-foot-tall mountain peak was instantly turned into ruins. Over 100 Nangong clansmen were unable to dodge in time and were instantly turned into dust. Such a valiant and heroic scene filled many of the Nangong clan members with fear, and they subconsciously retreated. How could the 7 inspectors and the godly kings let go of such a chance to flatter him? Everyone showed an appropriate expression of worship, clapping and cheering excitedly. Jin Shuang stood in the air, the divine sword in his hand pointed to the ground, with an awe-inspiring stance. With this strike, most of the shame and anger in his heart had dissipated, and he felt much better. Looking at the collapsed array, the thousands of Nangong clansmen trembling in fear as they retreated as though they were facing a great enemy, he was filled with even more arrogance as he laughed heartily. Ha 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 ha, Nangong old thief, come out and die. After laughing, he held the divine sword and led the godly kings and godly lords into the array, heading straight for the great light palace on the main peak. The thousands of Nangong clansmen were filled with fear and worry, but they weren't cowardly or timid. They retreated close to 100 miles and formed 2 lines of defense before they stopped retreating. Under the lead of the 3 elders and 20 deacons, they launched a brave counterattack. Charge! Kill! Even if we die in battle, we can't lose face for the Nangong clan. Many hot-blooded young disciples let out stubborn roars. The 3 elders and more than 20 deacons took the lead and charged forward. They unleashed their divine arts with all their might, releasing a divine light that blotted out the sky and covered the sun. Pang pang pang. Boom boom boom. Kaboom. The 2 groups of people quickly overlapped as they fiercely clashed. The sky was filled with divine techniques as they clashed, creating a deafening explosion that shook the heavens and earth. The divine light covered the sky as the devastating shockwaves shook the earth. Countless fragments of divine light danced in the air. Shouts of killing still reverberated in the heavens and earth. The mountains and forests below their feet, on the other hand, were already collapsing and splitting, turning into desolated ruins. Dust flew, blood splattered, and broken limbs flew in the air. The only thing left in this area was the scene of blood and fire. The most intense exchange of close combat brought about the most tragic battlefield. It was a ghastly sight. Both sides had only exchanged a few blows, but the Nangong clan had suffered heavy casualties and were constantly retreating. No matter if it was the 3 elders and 20 deacons, or the thousands of Nangong clan members, they were no match for Jin Shuang's army. Jin Shuang's side had only lost 30 Sir Gods, but the Nangong clan's casualties had already exceeded 100. If this continued, the thousands of Nangong clan members would be killed within 4 hours. At that time, more than half of Jin Shuang's army would survive. Thinking of this, Jin Shuang's army's morale soared as they charged even more bravely. The thousands of Nangong clan members were anxious as they thought to themselves, why haven't the family head and young miss acted yet? At this moment, the great light palace on the main peak suddenly lit up with a few beams of divine light that shot into the sky as a roar came out. The long roar that pierced through metal and stone broke through the air, causing many mountains to tremble. Jin Shuang raised her head and saw a few divine king experts rushing over in the form of flowing light. The leader was Nangong Buhua, who wore a blue robe and a divine crown. Old Nangong, you can't sit still after all. Jin Shuang's lips curled into a cold smile as she mocked in a disdainful tone. However, Nangong Buhua and the 4 divine king experts did not help the Nangong clan members when they got close. They took out a few divine artifacts and attacked the back of Jin Shuang's army. Swoosh! Swoosh swoosh! A total of 12 divine artifacts landed in the ruins and immediately shot into the sky, forming a huge barrier. Chapter 4067. Seeing the actions of Nangong Buhua and the others, Jin Shuang was clearly confused. The 7 inspectors, 42 godly kings, and many godly lords were also puzzled by this. Logically speaking, Nangong Buhua and the few divine king experts of the Nangong clan should have joined the battle. Why would they take out a divine weapon and set up a formation on the battlefield? Even if they wanted to set up a divine light barrier to block the attack of Jin Shuang's army, it should be between the 2 armies. Why would they set it up behind Jin Shuang's army? What was this? Of course, there were 2 or 3 inspectors who thought they had guessed Nangong Buhua's scheme and quickly shouted to remind everyone. Everyone be careful, this must be old Nangong's scheme. Don't be careless, don't fall into old Nangong's trap. The facts seemed to confirm their guesses. The 5-colored barrier extended in all directions and surrounded Jin Shuang's army. Seeing this, Jin Shuang immediately waved his sword and ordered, charge. Destroy them with all your strength and charge into the light palace. Jin Shuang was very calm and his goal was very clear. The divine light barrier could not harm them for the time being and could be ignored. If they wasted time and manpower to destroy the barrier, they would fall into Nangong Buhua's trap. The correct method was to charge forward and destroy the Nangong clan until they reached the Light Palace. The facts proved that Jin Shuang's method was very wise. He personally led the army under his command and defeated the Nangong clan members like a hot knife through butter, quickly advancing a few hundred miles. Only when Nangong Buhua and several elders stopped them did Jin Shuang and the experts under him stop their charge. The divine light barrier hundreds of miles behind them was still extending to both sides and the sky, but the speed was not fast enough. Not to mention whether the barrier could stop Jin Shuang and the others, even if it could, the temporary barrier did not have much killing power. Jin Shuang looked at Nangong Buhua who was hundreds of feet away and sneered disdainfully, "Old Nangong, have you gone senile? I said I would charge into the Light Palace, and cut off your head with my own hands. You didn't run for your life and didn't set up a defense in front of you, but set up a barrier behind us? Ha ha ha. Looks like you've been scared out of your wits and are at a loss for what to do, right?" The other inspectors also laughed wildly, mocking Nangong Buhua. "Old bastard Nangong, if you know what's good for you, you'd better kneel down and admit defeat. The deputy commander might give you a decent death. Old thief Nangong, I'm afraid it's not enough to just kneel down and admit defeat. It's best if you let your beautiful daughter accompany our deputy commander. Ha 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 ha. The vice commander gave you a chance before, but you insisted on dying. Old Nangong, die obediently. Hearing such filthy words, many elders, deacons, and clansmen of the Nangong clan were unable to restrain their anger. Their blood and chi surged, and they wished they could fight Jin Shuang's army to the death. However, Nangong Buhua, Nangong Nihuang, and the others were not angry. If one looked carefully, they would discover that their eyes were extremely calm and confident, and there was even a trace of mockery hidden in their eyes. The others did not see the problem, but Jin Shuang observed carefully and found some clues. His heart skipped a beat, and he had a bad premonition. What's going on? I have already brought people here. The Nangong clan is in a critical situation, and they are on the verge of death. Why are they not panicking at all? No. There must be something wrong, could it be? In an instant, Jin Shuang guessed a possibility. His pupils shrank, and a trace of worry flashed across his eyes. The facts once again confirmed his guess. Nangong Buhua held his head high, looked down at him with a dignified expression, and said in a sonorous voice, Jin Shuang, haven't you always said that you want to see the Kenshin in person? Now, you've got your wish. After speaking, he did not care about the reaction of Jin Shuang and the other inspectors, and turned to look in the direction of the Light Palace. Nangong Nihuang and the several elders also looked sideways at the main peak, a smile and expectant expression on their faces. At this moment, everyone was shocked and silent. Jin Shuang and the inspectors, god kings and divine lords under his command all had a look of astonishment, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. And everyone in the Nangong clan had a look of surprise and relief, and many people even cheered. Unknowingly, all the Nangong clan people had regarded Kenshin as their most reliable backer. And Jin Shuang and the god kings and divine lords under his command were filled with fear of Kenshin. Swoosh! At this moment, a white light lit up in the Light Palace, and soared into the sky. It was a handsome and valiant white figure. Although it was very far away and could not be seen clearly, it was still very blurry. But his extraordinary appearance, mysterious and dignified aura still made everyone's heart palpitate. Swoosh! The next moment, the white figure casually took a step forward, crossed the 8,000 miles of sky, and came to the battlefield. He stood in front of Nangong Buhua and Nangong Nihuang, looking calmly at Jin Shuang with a faint smile on his lips. Everyone's eyes were gathered on him at this moment. Thousands of pairs of eyes stared at him, revealing all kinds of complicated expressions. He was the same as before. His robe was as white as snow, and his long hair fluttered in the wind. He was indescribably handsome, elegant, and mysterious. That's right, he was Ji Tianqing, who had just finished his secluded cultivation. After he had broken through to the peak of the God King stage, he had cultivated for a period of time to stabilize his foundation and strength. Although, after he finished his secluded cultivation, there was a small incident in the distorted spacetime. But when he released his divine senses, he found that the Nangong clan was surrounded by strong enemies, so he put that matter aside and came out of seclusion first. Originally, he wanted to attack directly and destroy Jin Shuang's army with the power to destroy them. But Nangong Buhua and Nangong Nihuang dissuaded him and specially arranged such an entrance. Nangong Buhua told him that this was his first battle after returning to the God world, and it was very important. Not only did this battle have to be won beautifully, but it also had to be won easily and shockingly. After all, there were many forces watching in the dark, estimating his strength and thinking of how to bargain with him. Ji Tianqing did not mind following Nangong Buhua's advice and listened to it. Reality proved that such an appearance was indeed a pleasant surprise, and also left a deep impression on people. Jin Shuang, it has been many years since we last met. Do you have any last words? Ji Tianqing looked at Jin Shuang with a smile that was not a smile, and said these words calmly. It did not sound angry or murderous, as if he was saying goodbye to a passerby. Jin Shuang frowned fiercely, his eyes surging with anger. Although he was nervous, he was not afraid at all. With a dignified aura, he sneered and said, "Everyone knows that Kenshin's sword cultivation is unparalleled in the world, and his strength is incomparably strong. But you are heavily injured, and you are alone. How are you going to defend against me and my 800 elite soldiers? Today, I will kill you and use you as a stepping stone to become famous." Chapter 4068. If Jin Shuang could really kill Kenshin, that would fulfill his wish. He could really soar to the heavens and become famous in the god realm. Moreover, the Azura God Emperor would definitely reward him heavily and treat him as the #1 meritorious official. As for Kenshin, he would be killed by Jin Shuang in his first battle after returning to the god realm. This was definitely more humiliating than death. His legend would be shattered and he would become the laughingstock of the entire god realm. The two words, Kenshin, would also be quickly forgotten by the world. Even if people occasionally mentioned it, it would be the object of ridicule. But all of these were hypotheses and what-ifs. The reality was like this. Ji Tianqing chuckled and raised his right hand. Pinching his sword fingers, he pointed towards Jin Shuang's army. Xiu! Xiu xiu! 3 consecutive golden sword lights pierced through the air like lightning. Everyone only caught a glimpse of them before they exploded in the crowd. The divine monarchs under Jin Shuang did not even have time to react, let alone dodge or block. Even the 42 divine monarchs only saw the sword lights appear and did not have time to react. Ji Tianqing only casually pointed and sent out 3 simple sword lights. However, they contained many profound meanings of the way of the sword. The seemingly simple golden sword lights that were only 300 meters long actually contained more than 200 types of law divine power. Moreover, they were extremely fast and contained sword intent that reached the heavens. This was the peak of the way of the sword in the world. Bang bang bang. Amidst the deafening sound, flesh and blood flew in the crowd and screams sounded everywhere. At least 80 divine monarchs were killed on the spot by the sword lights. Their bodies turned into minced meat and blood splattered on the ruins. There were also 30 divine monarchs nearby who were lucky enough to keep their lives. However, they were also heavily injured by the sword intent and the shockwaves. Covered in blood, they fell into the ruins and let out miserable cries. The crowd immediately exploded. Hundreds of divine monarchs let out terrified screams and roars as they scattered in all directions. The formation was instantly thrown into chaos. Even the 40 divine monarchs and 7 inspectors subconsciously moved to the sides, afraid of being affected. Jin Shuang still stood at the front of the crowd and did not dodge. However, his expression was extremely ugly, and his eyes were filled with shame, anger, and killing intent. Ji Tianqing did not refute his provocation. Instead, he used practical actions to give the best answer. Kenshin had casually pointed a finger and instantly killed nearly 100 divine lord masters. Was this seriously wounded? You, Jin Shuang, are merely an 8th degree realm god king. How dare you clamor about killing Kenshin? How laughable. At this moment, everyone present seemed to have heard a resounding slap. But no matter how angry Jin Shuang was, no matter how much she feared Kenshin, it was impossible for her to escape without fighting. He glared angrily at Ji Tianqing and slowly raised his divine sword. The aura around his body rose crazily as the divine power in his body gathered violently. Everyone thought that he was seething with anger and was going to fight Kenshin himself. But to everyone's surprise, he waved his sword fiercely and roared, "Everyone, listen to my orders. Surround and kill Kenshin at all costs." When his voice fell, he took the lead and rushed out, leading all the soldiers under his command to kill Ji Tianqing with all their might. Obviously, Jin Shuang was not blinded by anger and still remained calm. He didn't forget that Sword God was Emperor God Xiu Luo's greatest enemy and the person he wanted to kill the most. As long as he could kill Kenshin, even if he and all his subordinates died here, it would be worth it. Kill Kenshin and make a name for yourself. Whoever can take Kenshin's head will definitely be rewarded with the greatest merit. Even if we die, we must drag Kenshin down with us. In the midst of the charge, several inspectors and many god kings shouted. They really did not care about anything else. Seeing such a scene, Nangong Nihuang, several elders, and many deacons' hearts were raised. There were even people who scolded Jin Shuang and the others. Damn it! They actually besieged Kenshin without caring about their lives. More than 800 people besieging Kenshin. Who can withstand this? Jin Shuang, this sinister old man, he is too despicable. Everyone, don't just stand there. Let's help Kenshin together. In the end, the elder's words were stuck in his throat before he could finish his sentence. Because, in the next moment, they saw what it meant to be invincible. Even in the face of the siege of Jin Shuang and more than 800 god kings and monarchs, Ji Tianqing was calm and composed, his expression calm. He did not take a step back, nor did he take out his divine sword or weapon. He just casually raised his palms and stabbed his 10 fingers straight at Jin Shuang's army. His slender and crystal-like fingers actually burst forth with hundreds of dazzling sword lights, carrying the power to destroy heaven and earth, interweaving a huge sword net in the sky. At the same time, dazzling golden light burst forth from his body, condensing into a huge wall of light behind him. At this moment, he was as dazzling as the sun, making it hard for people to look at him directly. The seemingly thin golden wall of light was like an indomitable wall between him and the Nangong clan members. Boom 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 boom. The attacks of Jin Shuang and the 800 god kings and monarchs all hit the golden wall of light, creating a huge explosion that shook heaven and earth. However, the wall of golden light continued to tremble, but not a single crack appeared. Instead, the divine technique attacks of Jin Shuang and the others were all shattered and disintegrated on the spot. Immediately after, Ji Tianqing sent out hundreds of sword lights, forming a huge sword net that enveloped Jin Shuang's army. Xiu! Xiu xiu xiu! The sword lights were faster than the speed of light, flying through the sky, piercing through and killing one god monarch after another, god king after god king. Pu pu pu, sounds came one after another, it was the sound of the sword lights piercing through the bodies. Thousands of Nangong clan members saw Jin Shuang's 800 god kings and monarchs trembling in the sky as if they were dancing. Their foreheads, the back of their heads, their hearts and other vital parts were all pierced by the sword lights, bringing out streams of blood that fell from the sky. Every time someone's head was pierced by the sword light, their godhead would shatter and they would die on the spot, their corpse falling down powerlessly. However, the corpse would not fall into the ruins, it would be cut into pieces by the sword net, turning into drops of blood and debris that fell into the ruins. Other than the sound of the sword lights piercing through the air, there were only the screams of Jin Shuang's army, angry roars and the shocked cries of the Nangong clan members. Before this, no one would have thought that someone could be so powerful, to be able to fight against 800 experts by himself. No one had ever seen the way of the sword being used like this, to be able to kill enemies so pleasing to the eye. Ji Tianqing sent out hundreds of sword lights, as if they were alive and intelligent. Other than the sword lights, he did nothing else, he just put his hands behind his back and quietly watched Jin Shuang's army. After 100 breaths, the power of the hundreds of sword lights was used up and they finally disappeared. As for the 800 god monarchs under Jin Shuang, they were all killed. Of the 42 god kings, only 22 were left and they were all heavily injured. Chapter 4069. The entire place was silent. Everyone was stupefied. Thousands of Nangong clan members were shocked as they looked at the battlefield in disbelief. They looked at the miserable Jin Shuang and the others. As for Jin Shuang, the 7 inspectors and the 22 divine kings, they looked at the empty sky in a daze. There were more than 800 people just now, but now there were only 30 left. The Nangong clan members watched from the side and did not help at all. Ji Tianqing alone killed more than 800 people with one move. They could not believe that this was real. Jin Shuang and the 29 surviving divine kings finally realized what terror was. In their understanding, even if it was a peak divine king, they should not be powerful to such an extent either. This was simply unreasonable. Previously, Jin Shuang and the others thought that no matter how strong Kenshin was, he was alone. As long as they paid a heavy price, they would definitely be able to kill Kenshin. But now, it seemed that this was an unrealistic fantasy. Just Kenshin alone could kill all of them. Under such circumstances, if they did not escape, they would be completely wiped out. After Jin Shuang and the others regained their senses, they did not hesitate to turn around and escape towards the Grotto Heaven's exit. The plan to kill Kenshin had already failed. Through this operation, they also proved that Kenshin was not injured and was very powerful. They were satisfied with this result. The most important thing now was to save their lives. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! 35 colored streaks of light streaked across the sky and escaped as fast as lightning. Even those domain lords and divine kings who were heavily injured and covered in blood released their last bit of potential and raised their speed to the limit. However, when they saw the situation in front of them, their expressions changed drastically. They all revealed expressions of anger and despair. This was because in front of them, to their left and right, and above their heads, there was a huge 5-colored barrier. This was the useless barrier that Nangong Buhua and the other elders took out dozens of divine artifacts to form. Previously, Jin Shuang and the others were still laughing at Nangong Buhua. Were they scared silly and did not know what to do? They actually set up a barrier behind them that did not threaten them at all. Now, they finally understood the use of the barrier. It turned out that Nangong Buhua and the others had predicted this outcome when they first appeared. That was why they had set up a barrier in advance. That barrier was not used to deal with them, but to prevent them from escaping. This was too ironic. Jin Shuang and the others were incomparably humiliated, but compared to their lives, that bit of humiliation was nothing. Everyone, assist me and break through it. At such a critical moment, there was no room for hesitation. Even the slightest delay would cause the escape to fail. As a result, Jin Shuang made a prompt decision to gather everyone's strength at one point and break through the multicolored barrier. Swish! Swish! The 7 inspectors and the 22 god kings reacted quickly and immediately gathered behind Jin Shuang, simultaneously releasing their god force into his body. Jin Shuang's godly power exploded. Her body swayed, and her robes fluttered. She held the godly sword with both hands and stabbed at the 5-colored barrier. He had gathered the power of 29 god kings, and his battle prowess had increased by at least 5 times. As for the 5-colored barrier, it was only a temporary defensive wall formed by Nangong Buhua and the others' divine artifacts. Its power would not be too strong. Seeing that Jin Shuang and the others were like a huge sharp blade, fiercely stabbing towards the 5-colored barrier. In the next moment, the 5-colored barrier was about to be penetrated, or even collapse. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing calmly took a step forward and teleported in front of Jin Shuang and the others. Then, he turned to face Jin Shuang and the others and casually punched. The punch that seemed neither fast nor slow, and was calm and peaceful, contained 100% of his strength, 300 types of law god force, and a soul-stirring power. Kaboom! Following a deafening sound, a mountain-sized dragon-elephant fist fiercely smashed into Jin Shuang's sword. Although the dragon-elephant phantom was shattered, Jin Shuang's full-powered strike was also destroyed. The berserk godly power fiercely smashed into Jin Shuang and the others. Not only were more than 300 types of laws and divine powers blasted apart, but even the invisible power of the spirit had also exploded. Thousands of Nangong clansmen saw Jin Shuang and the other 29 god kings fly out like broken sacks, tumbling hundreds of miles away. Especially Jin Shuang, who bore the brunt of the attack. His godly body could not withstand such power, and actually exploded on the spot, turning into a sky full of blood and debris. The few inspectors behind him, as well as a few heavily injured god kings, were also killed on the spot, not even their bones were left. Ji Tianqing's seemingly ordinary punch was actually able to defeat 30 god kings, and instantly kill 8 of them. Such terrifying power was beyond everyone's imagination. Plop! Plop! A moment later, more than 20 god kings who were lucky not to die fell into the ruins in disorder, and dust filled the sky. The few who were already killed, had their godhead fragments scattered in the ruins. Jin Shuang's luck was not bad, only his godly body was destroyed, his godhead was still intact, and he was running around wildly. Front, back, left, and right were all blocked. It was either the 5-colored barrier or the thousands of Nangong clansmen. He had nowhere to run. In a moment of desperation, his godhead could only drill into the ground, hoping to escape through the ground. But just as his godhead drilled into the ground, Ji Tianqing pointed a finger at the ground, and the power of tens of thousands of miles of earth gathered, turning into a sword light that soared into the sky. Kacha! That earthen yellow sword light pierced Jin Shuang's godhead without any deviation. With a crisp shattering sound, Jin Shuang's godhead collapsed on the spot, and he died. The remaining 20 or so god kings were all covered in blood, missing limbs, and miserably lying in the ruins. Even if they still had the strength to fly, they did not dare to act rashly, and also dispelled the thought of running away. Seeing Ji Tianqing walk over in the air, they were all scared out of their wits, and endured the humiliation as they knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. For a moment, the place was filled with wails. Ji Tianqing frowned, ignored the 20 or so god kings who were severely injured, and gave Nangong Buhua a look. Nangong Buhua immediately understood and immediately ordered the elders and deacons of the Nangong clan to go forward and capture the god kings. Whoosh! Ji Tianqing flew across the sky, and under the respectful and admiring gazes of all the Nangong clan members, he flew toward the light palace on the main peak. Nangong Buhua, Nangong Nihuang, and the others hurriedly followed and rushed toward the light palace. They knew that Kenshin would definitely give the order to start the operation. As for the elders and 20 deacons, they escorted the 20 or so god kings who were captured to the Nangong clan's dungeon. The thousands of Nangong clan members came back to their senses and started to clean up the battlefield and the ruins. Chapter 40-70. Ji Tianqing did not have to worry about the aftermath. The Nangong clan would take care of it. Whether it was cleaning up the battlefield, rebuilding the palaces and residences, or imprisoning and interrogating the deity kings, the Nangong clan would take care of it. After an hour, the Yenshu heavenly abode regained its peace. Although there was still a huge gap in the defensive formation that needed to be fixed, there was no hurry. Nangong Buhua sat at the head of the table, with Nangong Nihuang beside him. Ji Tianqing sat on the left, while the elders sat on the right. It was a simple and straightforward meeting. The 2 elders reported the results of the battle. Master, Lord Kenshin, we won the battle, but more than 800 of our people were killed, and more than 300 were injured. We have arranged for them to be treated. Jin Shuang's army, except for the 3 deity warships that escaped, we killed 952 of them and captured 24 deity kings. The 24 of them were severely injured, including 13 region masters. They are currently locked up in our dungeon, guarded by 3 elders and 20 deacons. The interrogations are still ongoing, and we expect the results within a day. Although the Nangong clan had many casualties, it was nothing compared to the tens of thousands of Nangong clan members. Moreover, they had almost annihilated Jin Shuang's army and killed him. This was news that would shock the boundless heaven continent, no, the entire realm of the gods. Nangong Buhua nodded slightly, showing that he was satisfied with the results. He ordered, "Send people to fix the gap in the defensive formation immediately. Even if we have to mobilize the entire clan, we must fix it as soon as possible. Otherwise, the Yenshu heavenly abode will be open at any time, and it will not be safe. Also, the news of Jin Shuang's army being annihilated will spread quickly. Not only will many forces pay attention to it, but the imperial tutor, Meng Shuai, and Commander Qi Yan will also know. They will be furious. From now on, we must strengthen our patrols and security, in case the imperial tutor and Meng Shuai retaliates and seeks revenge." The several elders bowed in unison and said, "Yes, sir." Everyone's gaze fell on Ji Tianqing, waiting for him to speak. After all, he was the only one who had the right to decide what to do next. Under everyone's gaze, Ji Tianqing said in a calm tone, "Today's battle will spread throughout the boundless heaven continent very soon. The major forces that have been watching us in the dark should know that it's time to make a choice. Nangong family head, I'll leave this matter to you. Inform all the family heads of the ancient clans as soon as possible and invite them to Yenshu Cave for a meeting. In addition to the forces loyal to the Azura God Emperor, there were more than a dozen top forces who were also invited. The time limit is 1 month. After that, I won't wait for you." Ji Tianqing was finally going to gather all the major factions and ancient clans to unite against the Azura God Emperor. However, Nangong Buhua, Nangong Nihuang, and the other elders were stunned when they heard his words. Everyone was shocked and in disbelief. Nangong Buhua frowned and asked, "Kenshin, are you sure you want to inform all the ancient clans and the top forces that are not loyal to the Shura God Emperor?" Others did not know, but everyone present was well aware. Although 70 to 80% of the forces and clans wanted to rebel against the Azura God Emperor's rule. However, there were very few clans and forces that were willing to support and follow Kenshin. Most of the ancient clans and top forces wanted to protect themselves and did not care about worldly affairs. Why would they come to Yenshu Cave for a meeting? If Ji Tianqing did this, not only would he not be able to gather a large number of allies and rebels, but it would also leak the information and reveal the timing of his action. However, Ji Tianqing seemed to have overlooked this point. He nodded without hesitation and said, "That's right." Nangong Buhua hesitated for a moment and said with a bitter smile, "But we all know that those guys have their own agendas and will not follow you openly." Ji Tianqing nodded to show that he understood and said, "You just need to send out a message and inform them. As for whether they come or not, that's their business." Seeing Ji Tianqing's firm attitude, Nangong Buhua and the rest guessed that he must have his own plans. Therefore, Nangong Buhua stopped persuading him and nodded to show that he understood. Next, Nangong Buhua and the other elders asked Ji Tianqing if he had any orders. What preparations did he need the Nangong clan to do? Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "The Nangong clan has already done what needs to be done. You can handle this matter." Nangong Buhua and the other elders felt that he was not that sad about this matter and did not feel nervous at all. They could not help but wonder. However, Ji Tianqing did not explain and they could not ask further. They could only suppress their doubts in their hearts. The meeting ended quickly. Ji Tianqing left the Divine Light Palace and returned to the secret room in his residence. He returned to the distorted space-time. Only Nangong Buhua and the rest were left in the main hall. The elders looked at the clan leader and asked, "Clan leader, do we really not need to do anything else and only need to recuperate?" Nangong Buhua nodded and said, "Since Kenshin has no other orders, it means that he has a card up his sleeve. You don't have to worry and just focus on recuperating. Moreover, everyone has seen with their own eyes how terrifying Kenshin's strength is. I am sure that other than the 5 god emperors, no one in this world is his match. So, what are you worried about? Hearing that what he said made sense, everyone no longer hesitated and left the Divine Light Palace to carry out their tasks. Only Nangong Buhua and Nangong Nihuang were left in the main hall, and it immediately quieted down. Nangong Nihuang looked at her father and asked, "Father, what tasks do you have for me?" Nangong Buhua thought for a while and said, "There is nothing for you to do. If you have nothing to do, you can patrol Yenshu Cave and strengthen the defenses. Also, if you have nothing to do, you can spend more time with Long Tian to prevent him from inconveniencing himself." Nangong Nihuang heard and naturally understood what her father meant. Her eyes flashed with a tinge of shyness and she nodded and left. The people of the Nangong clan were still busy. Ji Tianqing had already returned to the distorted spacetime to settle the small matter that he had put aside previously. Although it was a small matter, it was actually not a small matter. After all, this matter was discovered by the blood illusion god, and it was related to the blood flame sacred tree. Many years ago, the blood illusion god did not have a body. It was Ji Tianqing who used a branch of the blood flame sacred tree to refine his body. From then on, the blood illusion god of the God Lord realm possessed the body of a god king and shone with the second glory of his life. Now that he had already broken through to the God King level, his title was changed to the Blood Illusion God King. Previously in the battle on the Heavenly Policy Star, the Blood Illusion God King fought bravely and was severely injured. He was on the verge of death and almost lost his life. At the critical moment, fortunately, Ji Ku and the Sword of Burial of Heaven saved his life and saved his life. He originally thought that even if he returned to the distorted spacetime, he would need to recuperate for a few hundred years to recover. Who would have thought? Chapter 4071. A few months had passed in the outside world, but the Blood Fantasy Deity King had only been recuperating in the distorted spacetime for 20 years. He did not expect that his injuries had already recovered by 70 to 80%. He was no longer in danger. Such an exaggerated recovery speed made the Blood Fantasy Deity King feel incredulous. When Lin Shui, Chao Qingyu, and the rest found out, they exclaimed in amazement and asked the Blood Fantasy Deity King how he did it. The Blood Fantasy Deity King carefully recalled and racked his brains, but he could not find the reason. In the end, he briefly explained the process of treating his injuries to everyone. Back then, he was seriously injured and on the verge of death. He was in a semi-conscious and semi-conscious state when he returned to the distorted spacetime in a daze. His body was on the verge of shattering. He fell on the platform under the sacred tree and fell into a coma. His injuries were very serious. Not only was his body on the verge of collapse, his soul was also seriously injured and on the verge of collapse. But after a few years of deep sleep, he actually woke up. Then, he found that his injuries had healed and almost recovered by half. Even the injuries to his soul had unknowingly healed by half. Then, he could still feel that the blood flame sacred tree was continuously injecting energy into him to help him heal his injuries. Just like that, his injuries were mostly healed in just 20 years. This clearly proved that his miraculous recovery was due to the blood flame sacred tree. Chao Qingyu, Lin Shui and the rest also expressed their belief and agreement with this answer. After all, for so many years, they had also received immeasurable benefits from the blood flame sacred tree. But they only absorbed the power of the blood flame sacred tree. Every time their souls were injured, they did not feel that the sacred tree was helping them heal. Therefore, this discovery attracted everyone's attention. At that time, Ji Tianqing had just finished his seclusion. After knowing about this, he wanted to study it. He did not expect that Jin Shuang's army had already broken through Yenshu's grotto heaven and was about to reach the Great Hall of Light. Therefore, Ji Tianqing could only go and deal with Jin Shuang's army first and put this matter aside. Now, he returned to the blood flame sacred tree. Lin Shui, the blood fantasy deity king, Chao Qingyu, and the rest were still waiting for him. Seeing that he had arrived, everyone quickly gathered around him and excitedly told him about a new discovery. "Young master, we've made a new discovery through comparison and research." Ji Tianqing's interest was piqued. He quickly asked, "What did you find?" Xue Lin was full of excitement and said with bright eyes, "Before, we could only absorb the power of the bloodfire sacred tree, but our souls didn't benefit. However, Xue Huan was different. Logically speaking, the blood flame sacred tree was his and he had nurtured it for so many years. As the owner of the blood flame sacred tree, he should be able to communicate with the sacred tree and merge his divine sense with it. But in reality, things were not that simple. The blood flame sacred tree was not a living thing and it had not gained sentience. Divine sense could not enter it and merge with it. Everyone had to think of a reasonable way to merge their divine sense into the sacred tree. Lin Xue proposed the first suggestion. Everyone should eat a divine fruit from the blood flame sacred tree and use the fruit's power to strengthen their connection with the sacred tree. This idea sounded feasible, so everyone started to try it out. After each of them consumed a divine fruit, they did indeed receive great benefits. Their divine power increased slightly. But when they tried to merge their divine sense with the blood flame sacred tree, there was still no reaction. Chao Qingyu proposed the second suggestion. Everyone's divine sense directly merged with the sacred tree. It did not seem realistic. Why not focus on one branch and use their divine sense to nourish and refine it? This might work. This suggestion was very reliable and sounded very feasible. So everyone started to try again. Half a month later, everyone used their divine sense to nourish the target branch until it glowed. But they still could not merge their divine sense. This suggestion was a failure. Then, Ji Tianqing proposed two very important issues. First, everyone had to find a way to strengthen their connection with the blood flame sacred tree. Secondly, they had to separate a wisp of their spiritual energy and separate it from their own. Only then would they be able to merge with the bloody fire sacred tree. Chapter 40-72. The two questions that Ji Tianqing raised were indeed very important. Everyone knew that it made sense, but they all fell into hesitation. The first question was easy to answer, but the second question was the key. The souls of everyone present were complete, and the soul was a very mysterious and complicated thing. Rashly cutting off a strand of the soul would definitely cause great harm to the body, and there might even be unforeseen dangers. For example, it would affect the soul, consciousness, and thinking, lose some memories or abilities, and even affect the foundation of the divine path and the realm of strength. All the above dangers were very likely to happen, and no one dared to be careless. Thus, everyone fell silent and regained their composure. Ji Tianqing looked around and said with a smile, "Let me try first." Just as he finished speaking, the blood fantasy god king hurriedly stopped him. "Young master, you must not. You are carrying out a very important plan now, and there must not be any mistakes. Let me do it." Lin Xue quietly tugged at the blood fantasy god king's sleeve and reminded him softly, "You have already fused a strand of your soul with the sacred tree, how can you still try?" The blood fantasy god king scratched his head awkwardly and could only step back. Then, Lin Xue, Chao Qingyu, and Yank stepped forward at the same time and said firmly, "Let me do it." Left emissary Jean and blood dragon right also came over and said hot-bloodedly, "Let me do it." Ji Tianqing looked at the two of them and persuaded, "It was not easy for the two of you to break through to the divine king realm, and now you have not even stabilized your realms, so don't come and join in the fun." Left emissary Jean and blood dragon right were persuaded to go back, but Lin Xue, Chao Qingyu, and Yank still insisted. However, Ji Tianqing stopped the three of them and said earnestly, "This blood flame sacred tree was raised by me, and I am its master, so I know it best. Moreover, I have the most experience in cultivating the divine path, so of course, I will try first. After I succeed, I will teach you how to do it. Even if I don't succeed, at least I will not let myself be hurt. Don't worry, my control of the soul is meticulous, nothing will happen. No one could dissuade him, so they could only agree to let him try. Of course, everyone knew that he was protecting them, and their hearts were filled with gratitude. Not long after, Ji Tianqing began to cast a spell, carefully dividing the soul. Everyone sat around him, wholeheartedly protecting him. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly, let alone make the slightest sound for fear of disturbing him. Even though severing a strand of soul was an extremely dangerous, complicated, and troublesome matter, it was still not enough. However, Ji Tianqing's control over his soul was indeed extraordinarily meticulous. 10 days passed quietly. He successfully separated a wisp of his soul and condensed it into a ball of white light in front of him. The divine soul that looked like a white mist was only the size of a walnut, but it contained pure divine soul power, consciousness, and memories. However, after it left Ji Tianqing's body, it couldn't stay in the distorted space for too long. It had to attach itself to something. Moreover, Ji Tianqing had just separated a wisp of his soul, so it still affected his body and made him weaker than before. However, he didn't care about recuperating and adjusting his breath. He hurriedly used his divine soul power to nourish a branch of the blood flame sacred tree, and began to try to merge it. The platform was silent, and time passed quietly. Lin Shui, Chao Qingyu, and the rest remained silent. They stared at Ji Tianqing attentively, observing how he would cast the spell. Everyone's hearts were also in their mouths, and they were worried and anxious for Ji Tianqing. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing's casting process was very stable, and there were no abnormalities. His expression was also very calm, and his divine soul were in a normal state. Day after day passed, and everyone's anxious hearts gradually relaxed. Another 10 days later, above everyone's head, the branch that was about 1 meter long gradually changed from a purplish-red color to a layer of light gold. Seeing this special change, everyone was excited and full of excitement and anticipation. After waiting for another 3 days, Ji Tianqing finally finished casting the spell and opened his eyes. Everyone hurriedly surrounded him and asked about his well-being, and how he was doing. Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "I've made you worry. The process was very smooth, and I succeeded. Now, I also have a wisp of my divine soul attached to this blood flame sacred tree, which is equivalent to having another life-saving talisman." When everyone heard this, they immediately cheered excitedly. "Wow, that's great! You finally succeeded, my lord is really amazing. That's great." After cheering, everyone looked at Ji Tianqing and listened to him explain the process of casting the spell, the things to pay attention to, and his summary of his experience. He spoke carefully one by one, so that everyone could understand clearly and not miss anything. After all, this matter was very important to everyone, and there was no room for mistakes. Half a day later, Ji Tianqing imparted his experience to everyone and answered all their questions. Then, Lin Shui volunteered to be the first to try. Ji Tianqing, Chao Qingyu, and the others all expressed their encouragement and support for her bravery. Thus, Lin Shui began to follow Ji Tianqing's instructions and cut her divine soul to fuse with the sacred tree. Ji Tianqing, Chao Qingyu, and the others helped to protect her and keep an eye on her situation. The process did not need to be described in detail. Although there was a small incident, under Ji Tianqing's protection, it could be considered a daunting experience without any mishap. After more than 20 days, Lin Shui's wisp of divine soul successfully fused with a branch of the blood flame sacred tree. The purple-black branch was also covered with a layer of white fluorescence that flowed slowly, and it was very special. Lin Shui succeeded. Next, Chao Qingyu, Yang, Lan, and the others all tried one by one under Ji Tianqing's guidance. Chao Qingyu took 22 days to successfully fuse a wisp of divine soul into the sacred tree. Lan took 24 days to complete, while Yank only took 18 days. This did not mean that Yank was more talented and stronger than the couple, but that Yank's thinking was simpler and more direct. After they all succeeded, Gold left emissary and Blood Dragon Right emissary, who had been cultivating for a few months, also rushed over to join in the fun. Thus, everyone imparted their experience and tricks to them and protected them together, allowing them to successfully fuse a wisp of divine soul. Unknowingly, half a year passed. Yin Yao and Ji Wushuang finished cultivating and woke up. Seeing that everyone was gathered under the blood flame sacred tree and seemed to be studying something, the mother and daughter flew over. Everyone greeted and exchanged greetings. After that, Yin Yao asked Ji Tianqing what had happened. Ji Tianqing told Yin Yao the whole story. After hearing this, Yin Yao smiled and said with worry and some reproach, "You're too mischievous. You've already fused with the five elements world. As long as the five elements world is not destroyed, you won't die. It's enough to have the five elements world to protect your life. Why did you risk splitting your divine soul and fusing it with this sacred tree? What if something went wrong when you split your divine soul?" Halfway through her words, she suddenly understood Ji Tianqing's good intentions and stopped the topic. "Sai, I know you're doing this for everyone's sake. You're trying to find a way to save everyone's lives." Many years ago, they had been scheming to curry favor with the Meng Shuai and the imperial tutor and wanted to join the Shura god emperor. However, the Meng Shuai and the imperial tutor didn't like them and ignored them. Now, they are using my message to ask for credit from the Meng Shuai and the imperial tutor. Perhaps they will get what they want. I see. Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a smile, "Everyone has their own ambitions. If they want to join the strong and gain benefits, then let them be. However, you must remember all of them. Because we're going to meet them soon. At that time, none of them can be left out." Although his voice and tone were calm, Nangong Buhua could still hear the murderous intent. Previously, he was worried that even if Ji Tianqing defeated those factions, he would consider the big picture and take them as his subordinates. If that was the case, he and the Nangong clan would have to work with those fence-sitters. Just thinking about it made him feel disgusted. Now, with Ji Tianqing's words, he was relieved. At least, when the two sides fought, he wouldn't forget to deal with those factions. Just as Nangong Buhua was making up his mind, Ji Tianqing asked again, "Who are the four ancient clans that are rushing here as soon as possible?" At the mention of these four ancient clans, Nangong Buhua's mood improved. He replied with a smile, "Naturally, they are the clans that have received your favor and supported you the most. There is the War God clan from the Fighting Grotto Heaven, the Lan clan from the Azure Grotto Heaven, the Phoenix clan from the Divine Phoenix Grotto Heaven, and the Jiang clan from the Divine Attraction Grotto Heaven." Hearing the names of these four clans, Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said with a playful smile, "As expected, a friend in need is a friend indeed." Then this time, he must have come to negotiate with you and ask for the forging diagram of the divine hammer. Ji Tianqing just smiled and didn't say anything. Perhaps Nangong Buhua was still considering that the blueprint of the 100 refining divine hammer was too precious to be given to Su Balian so easily. Ji Tianqing had to seek more benefits. But in reality, Ji Tianqing didn't care too much about it. It was just a supreme-grade divine artifact, and he already had a few of them. Now that he had recovered to the peak of the Divine King stage, he still couldn't control the power of the heavenly way. This made him confused and worried. The treasure he wanted the most was no longer a supreme-grade king divine artifact, but something of a higher grade. For example, an emperor-grade divine artifact. Of course, this was just the name he thought of, and it was a general statement. The divine artifact that surpassed the supreme-grade king divine artifact was definitely related to the power of the heavenly way, but he still didn't know what it was called. Then, the two of them discussed some follow-up matters. Ji Tianqing reminded, other than the dozen fence-sitters, send a message to the other clans and forces. Tell them that I said this, and this is the last time I inform them. It's still a 1-month deadline, and I won't wait after that. Those who come first are allies, and also friends. After this deadline, if you want to form an alliance again, you should consider your own strength. These words were somewhat threatening, and it was also Ji Tianqing's ultimatum. Nangong Buhua thought for a while and asked uncertainly, "Young master, are you sure you want to say this? We haven't taken action yet, and our forces can't be compared to the Shura God Emperor. Even if we threaten them like this, I'm afraid it won't work, and it might even backfire." He was afraid that those clans and forces that were still hesitating and watching would directly submit to the Shura God Emperor after being threatened by Ji Tianqing, or watch coldly from the sidelines. However, Ji Tianqing was not worried at all. He chuckled and said, "If we have an overwhelming advantage, those clans and forces will know what to do even if they are fools. But now, it seems that we are at a disadvantage, and we can't be compared to the Shura God Emperor's forces. It's under such circumstances that those forces that are willing to form an alliance with us are sincere." Nangong Buhua immediately understood his intention and nodded in agreement. "Young master, I understand. You would rather have a few loyal and trustworthy allies than a bunch of half-hearted partners with ulterior motives. Because you are already confident that you can control the entire situation, right?" Ji Tianqing did not answer and only nodded with a smile. Nangong Buhua was not foolish enough to ask him where his confidence came from. Chapter 4075. On this day. In Yenshu Cave, in the Great Light Palace of the Nangong clan. The 1-month deadline was over, and those who were supposed to be here had arrived. As for those who were not here, they had made up their minds to observe the movements of the Kenshin and the Nangong clan, and then react accordingly. The magnificent Great Light Palace was shrouded in a solemn atmosphere. The most elite guards of the Nangong clan were guarding the surroundings of the Great Light Palace. The doors of the palace were closed, and only the leaders of the various forces, the elders of the Nangong clan, Nangong Buhua, and the others were participating in the meeting in the Great Light Palace. Today, Nangong Buhua sat on the left side, while Nangong Nihuang and several elders stood behind him. On the right side of the Great Light Palace, there were 7 divine king experts sitting in a row of seats. They were all dressed luxuriously and had a dignified aura. Behind each of them stood several divine king experts. They were the elders and protectors of the various forces. Although the forces represented by these experts were the first to express their support for the Kenshin. But when Nangong Buhua saw them, he did not feel any admiration or closeness. This was because 3 of them had masked their faces a month ago. Obviously, these experts were not sitting here today to pledge their allegiance to Ji Tianqing, but to negotiate. Whether the two sides could form an alliance would depend on the outcome of the negotiation, and whether the experts were satisfied. The hall was completely silent. Ji Tianqing had not arrived yet. Everyone was holding their breaths and patiently waiting for him to show up. 15 minutes later, the doors of the Great Light Palace finally opened. The guards at the door shouted, "Kenshin has arrived." So, everyone stood up and turned their heads to look at the door. Everyone's gaze was focused on the handsome young man in the white robe. Looking at him striding into the main hall, many people looked at him with awe along the way. "Greetings to Kenshin." Nangong Buhua took the lead and bowed respectfully. The others followed suit and bowed respectfully. There was no doubt that Nangong Buhua had specially arranged for this appearance. Originally, Ji Tianqing had ended his cultivation a day earlier, and could have gathered everyone for a meeting at any time. However, Nangong Buhua insisted on following this procedure to make an appearance. He said that he wanted to frighten the experts. Ji Tianqing didn't care, but he accepted Nangong Buhua's suggestion. So far, it seemed that the effect was pretty good. At the very least, the few powerhouses who hadn't seen Ji Tianqing before had complicated expressions when they saw Ji Tianqing. Through the subtle changes in their expressions, it could be seen that their state of mind had changed. Ji Tianqing walked through the spacious hall and stood at the head of the table. He turned around to face the crowd. His gaze swept across everyone's faces and he said, "Everyone is too polite. Please take a seat." After he finished speaking, he took a seat at the head of the table. Only then did everyone else take their seats. Ji Tianqing was not in a hurry to speak. His spokesperson, Nangong Buhua, spoke first. Nangong Buhua stood up and cupped his hands at the experts of the 8 forces. He said, "Everyone knows why we're gathered here today and what we're going to discuss. Since that's the case, we don't need to waste time saying useless words. Here, I'll start first for everyone's reference." After he finished speaking, he turned to face Ji Tianqing on the throne and said solemnly, "Lord Kenshin, 1,000 years ago, the people of the boundless heaven continent were simple and honest, and the people were free. Our 18 ancient clans were divided into regions to protect the peace of the boundless heaven continent. The situation was very peaceful. However, ever since the Shura god emperor ruled the boundless heaven continent, he used all kinds of methods to suppress the 100 territories and enslaved millions of people. This caused the people of the boundless heaven continent to live in poverty and darkness. We wanted to kill the thief, but we were powerless to resist. We could only endure the humiliation and wait for you to make a comeback. Now that you've finally returned, the Nangong clan is willing to sacrifice everything to follow Lord Kenshin. We want to suppress the tyrant and overthrow the dark rule of the Shura god emperor. We want to save the entire boundless heaven continent and let millions of people regain their freedom. Lord Kenshin, please allow the 8,000 men of the Nangong clan to join you and serve you loyally." Nangong Buhua's voice was sonorous. After he finished speaking, he even bowed to Ji Tianqing to express his request. Ji Tianqing seemed to be deeply moved. His eyes shone brightly as he nodded solemnly and said, "The Nangong clan leader is righteous and cares about the people of the world. You're really a role model for our generation. The Nangong clan has a compassionate heart and is willing to sacrifice themselves to save the people of the world. This is even more worthy of admiration and respect. How can I refuse such a righteous request that concerns the people of the world? I accept the Nangong clan's allegiance. From now on, we'll become allies and help each other with all our hearts." After he finished speaking, Ji Tianqing took out a jade slip and waved his hand, causing it to fly in front of Nangong Buhua. "Nangong clan leader, this is the alliance agreement that I made in advance. You only need to read this alliance agreement out loud, and we'll be allies." Nangong Buhua stretched out his hands without hesitation and held the jade slip. With a loud and solemn voice, he read out the alliance agreement in the jade slip. The so-called alliance agreement was actually an oath that Ji Tianqing had prepared in advance. After Ji Tianqing modified it, it was more like an alliance agreement. But in essence, when Nangong Buhua read out the alliance agreement that was close to 1,000 words, he still made an oath to the heavenly Tao. The 37th generation Nangong clan leader, Nangong Buhua, hereby swears that we're willing to form an alliance with Kenshin Long Tian. We'll live and die together and will never betray each other. When Nangong Buhua's loud voice echoed in the Great Hall of Light, the leaders of the 8 forces were stunned. No one had expected things to develop like this. The so-called negotiation and discussion of the alliance was actually so simple and crude. There was a lot of swearing to the heavens, asking the heavenly Tao to bear witness, and so on. Before they came, the leaders of the few forces were still thinking about how to fight for benefits and how to bargain with Ji Tianqing. Now, it seemed that there was no need for that. Without a doubt, This was a scene that Nangong Buhua and Ji Tianqing had discussed in advance and insisted on adding. Ji Tianqing had originally planned to negotiate with the 8 forces directly and allow them to make some requests and conditions. As long as it was not too overboard, he could consider and negotiate. However, Nangong Buhua wanted to take the lead to speak and set an example for the 8 forces to set the tone for this meeting. That was because he was worried that the 8 forces would ask for too much and ruin the negotiation. Therefore, there was this scene. After 100 breaths, when Nangong Buhua finished reading the alliance agreement, a wisp of Tao runes appeared above his head and his body was glowing with golden light. In the sky above the great hall of light, there were continuous rumbles of thunder. Obviously, the oath to the heavenly Tao had been completed, which was why such a phenomenon had appeared. The leaders of the various forces looked at Nangong Buhua in a different light. A few experts fidgeted uneasily and looked embarrassed. She's safe and her strength has increased after training. Since I've met the leader of the Divine Phoenix clan today, I should let Bai Feng meet you to prevent the Divine Phoenix clan from worrying. After saying that, he used his divine consciousness to wake up Bai Feng, who was in the distorted spacetime. Then, he waved his hand and shot out a white light to activate the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes Tower. Swoosh! With a flash of white light, Bai Feng appeared in the radiant hall. Ji Tianqing had explained the situation to him in advance, so he wasn't surprised to see so many God Kings sitting in the hall. Bai Feng, disciple of the Divine Phoenix clan, greets seniors and fellow Taoists. Bai Feng, who was dressed in white and looked cold and serious, bowed to the God Kings in the hall. Then, he walked to the leader of the Divine Phoenix clan and bowed respectfully. Greetings to the clan leader, the great guardian, and the 2 elders. After so many years, Bai Feng was happy and excited to finally meet the members of the Divine Phoenix clan. However, he looked calm and didn't lose his composure. He already had the dignified bearing of a leader. The leader of the Divine Phoenix clan, the great guardian, and the 2 elders observed carefully and found that Bai Feng had already broken through to the 8th level of the Divine King realm. This discovery caused everyone to be filled with pleasant surprise. Chapter 4077. Everyone knew that it was extremely difficult for a God King expert to raise 1 level and it would usually take a few hundred or a few thousand years. Bai Feng had only reached the 7th level of the God King realm for 300 plus years. The Phoenix clan's experts all thought that he would need at least 1,000 years before he could reach the 8th stage realm. They had not expected that he had already broken through after not seeing him for several decades. It was imaginable how much benefits he had gained from following Kenshin all these years. The great guardian and the 2 elders were curious and envious at the same time. But now was not the time to chat and reminisce about the past. They could only suppress their curiosity as they waited for the clan leader and Bai Feng to discuss official matters. Divine Phoenix clan leader looked at Bai Feng and sent a voice transmission. Bai Feng, tell us the truth, what is Kenshin's character? Is he trustworthy and worthy of following? Today the guardians and elders are all here. If you don't wish to follow Kenshin, you can follow us back to the Phoenix clan now. Their voice transmission conversation would not be heard by anyone else. So Divine Phoenix clan leader did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Bai Feng was stunned, apparently not expecting the clan leader to be so direct. After muttering to himself for a moment and seriously considering it, he sent a voice transmission to the clan leader and said in a solemn tone, although I have followed Kenshin in name these few years and have no choice but to be loyal to him. But in actual fact, he has always treated me as a friend. Of course, not only me, there are many people under him and they can all be considered as his friends. He would never ask anyone to sacrifice or contribute for him. Instead, he always protects everyone. With such friends and allies, we can completely trust him. Moreover, clan leader. I don't intend to return to the Phoenix clan. I want to continue following Kenshin and help him complete that earth-shattering feat. Bai Feng's voice was low but his tone was firm and unquestionable. Divine Phoenix clan leader could hear his determination and knew that he had finally found a goal to fight for. Kenshin could actually influence the people around him to fight for his goal willingly, even if they had to sacrifice their lives. It was imaginable how terrifying was Kenshin's charisma. Divine Phoenix clan leader fell silent as he looked at Bai Feng with a complicated expression, not knowing what to say. At this moment, Bai Feng bowed to him and did not say anything else. She walked towards the great guardian and the two elders. In the past, he had a very close relationship with the two elders. After not seeing them for so many years, of course he had to greet them and catch up. The leader of the Divine Phoenix tribe thought for a moment before clasping his fists at Ji Tianqing. He solemnly said, "Young Master Long Tian, after careful consideration, I have decided to ally with you." After that, he was about to read out the agreement of the alliance to show his sincerity. This way, he could avoid the awkwardness. If he had to swear to the heavens like Nangong Buhua, it would be really embarrassing. Moreover, after swearing to the heavens, the heavenly Tao would sense it, so the phoenixes would not dare to violate the oath easily. That was equivalent to putting shackles on the phoenixes. They would be completely passive and would no longer have a chance to bargain. However, before the Divine Phoenix clan leader could read the agreement, Ji Tianqing waved his hand and a beam of white light landed in front of him. Within the white light was a jade slip, which recorded the oath of the heavenly Tao that had been changed into a covenant. Since the Divine Phoenix clan leader has the sincerity to form an alliance, everyone should be treated equally. Only then will it be fair. What do you think? Ji Tianqing looked at the Divine Phoenix clan leader with a smile. His tone was casual, but there was a hint of irrefutability in it. The Divine Phoenix clan leader frowned. His pupils constricted, and he was a little unhappy. However, since things had come to this, he could not back down. If he insisted on resisting, the situation would become even worse. The other clan leaders and sect masters were all looking at him expectantly, waiting for him to make a decision. After hesitating for a while, the Divine Phoenix clan leader chose to believe Bai Feng. He gritted his teeth and made up his mind. He picked up the jade slip and read out the agreement that Ji Tianqing had made in a low voice according to the contents inside. This agreement was basically the same as what Nangong Buhua had read out. It was also close to 1,000 words long, and it sounded like all kinds of restrictions and restrictions. After the Divine Phoenix clan leader finished reading the agreement, the phoenixes were considered to have been trapped by Ji Tianqing. They would not dare to betray him or go against him. Unless the phoenixes were not afraid of being punished by the heavenly Tao. Boom! Boom! After the Divine Phoenix clan leader finished reading the agreement, thunder rumbled in the sky above the light palace. A wisp of Tao runes appeared above his head, and his whole body was covered in a layer of golden light. Everyone in the palace saw this scene and felt the vast power of the heavenly Tao. They were all curious and shocked. Ji Tianqing kept saying that the Divine Phoenix clan leader's sincerity had moved the heavens. However, the divine kings present all knew that things were definitely not that simple. Nangong Buhua and the Divine Phoenix clan leader swore to the heavens. The content of the oath was recognized by the heavenly Tao, and it became a heavenly Tao oath. Whoever dared to go against the oath would have to consider whether they could withstand the punishment of the heavenly Tao. At that thought, the clan leaders and sect masters' eyes dimmed. They were nervous and hesitant. After the heavenly Tao oath's phenomenon ended, the Divine Phoenix clan leader knew that the outcome was set. There was no turning back. He felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders, and he let out a long sigh. Ji Tianqing continued his previous performance. He seemed to be very touched, as he said, "The Divine Phoenix clan leader's sincerity in forming an alliance with me has moved the heavens and attracted the heavenly Tao to witness it. It's really commendable. I agree to form an alliance with the Phoenix clan. From now on, we will help each other and live and die together. When we succeed in the future, the Fuchuan region will be ruled by the Phoenix clan. The Phoenix clan will also be able to develop their forces and industries in the surrounding 10 regions. There was no surprise or joy in this outcome. The benefits that the Phoenix clan received were exactly the same as the Nangong clan. The Divine Phoenix clan leader forced a smile and thanked Ji Tianqing. Then, he returned to his seat and did not say anything else. It was obvious that the old man's expression was gloomy. He simply closed his eyes and rested. The Phoenix clan's alliance was successful. Next was the Lan clan's turn. Lan Wuji knew that he could not change the outcome. However, he could not just leave. He could only accept his fate. He stood up decisively and expressed his willingness to form an alliance. Then, he read out the agreement that Ji Tianqing had taken out. His swift and decisive actions caused everyone to have a whole new level of respect for him. A smile also appeared on Ji Tianqing's face. After Lan Wuji read out the oath, there was another scene of thunder and Dao runes. Ji Tianqing acted as usual. He promised the Lan clan the same benefits as the Nangong clan and the Phoenix clan. Lan Wuji smiled and thanked him. Then, he handed the jade slip to Jiang Chuyun, who was beside him. Jiang Chuyun looked at the jade slip in front of him and the smiling and amiable Lan Wuji. He was so angry that his nose almost went crooked. The Divine Phoenix clan leader and Lan Wuji were respected seniors. They could only accept it when Nangong Buhua forced them to do so. However, it was not certain who would be the next to read out the alliance agreement. Now, Lan Wuji handed it to him directly. He could not accept it, but he could not refuse it either. However, when Lan Wuji saw his hesitation, he smiled and said, "Clan leader Jiang, it's your turn. Don't worry. Everyone's alliance agreement is the same. Just read it." Chapter 4078. F***ck, hearing Lan Wuji's words, Jiang Chuyun's face almost turned black. Despicable old fox. Jiang Chuyun cursed in his heart. He could only brace himself and accept the jade slip. Back then, before Ji Tianqing left the divine world, something unpleasant had happened in the Jiang clan. At that time, Jiang Chuyun was afraid of Jin Shuang and her army, so he had no choice but to offend Ji Tianqing. But since then, he swore to himself that he would never offend Ji Tianqing again. He also couldn't give Ji Tianqing a bad impression. Otherwise, he would ruin the relationship between Kenshin and the Jiang clan. Therefore, he took the jade slip, took a deep breath, and began to read the alliance agreement. The contents of the alliance agreement didn't change much. After reading it, thunder rumbled and Taoist rhymes appeared. His whole body was covered in golden light. Those in the know knew that it was a heavenly oath. Those who didn't know would think that he was going to ascend after being rewarded by the heavens. When the Taoist rhymes dissipated and the thunder stopped, the alliance agreement between the Jiang clan and Ji Tianqing was completed. As usual, Ji Tianqing was touched and promised the Jiang clan the same benefits. He still controlled a region and allowed them to develop their forces in the surrounding 10 regions. After the Jiang clan's matter was settled, Jiang Chuyun looked at the jade slip in his hand and then at the Battle God clan's leader. It was unknown whether it was because Jiang Chuyun had a high EQ and didn't want to offend others. Or was it because the Battle God clan's leader's 6-meter-tall body was as majestic as an iron tower and was too oppressive? In short, Jiang Chuyun returned the jade slip to Ji Tianqing and didn't hand it to the Battle God clan's leader. But what everyone didn't expect was that when the jade slip flew to Ji Tianqing, the Battle God clan's leader waved his hand and shot out a golden light, taking the jade slip. He held the jade slip in his hand and didn't hurry to read the alliance agreement. Instead, he said to Ji Tianqing, "Brother Long Tian, do you still remember our agreement?" Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. He asked, Brother Zhan is referring to, having me spar with the brothers from the War God clan. The Battle God clan leader smiled and explained, it's good that Brother Long still remembers. However, it can't be considered a spar. I just hope that when you are free, you can give us some pointers. Ji Tianqing's smile was still gentle as he said, no problem. It's a good thing for everyone to learn from each other and improve. Seeing that he had agreed, the War God clan leader no longer had any doubts. He immediately picked up the jade slip and read out the alliance agreement. Originally, this was a treaty that would make all the patriarchs and sect masters depressed. Normally, as they read it, their expressions would become serious and their moods would become very sullen. However, the War God clan patriarch's thunderous voice actually sounded impassioned and hot-blooded, as if he was about to die heroically. As his body lit up with golden light, Taoist rhymes appeared above his head. When the heavenly thunder rumbled in the sky, his aura reached its peak. The golden armor on his body shone brightly. That scene, that aura, it was as if he was about to go into battle to kill the enemy. The patriarchs and sect masters who had yet to read out the alliance agreement looked at each other in dismay. They communicated privately and almost cursed out loud. These old fellows, each one is more shrewd than the other. That's right. They are all fellows who sail according to the wind. Previously, they were still thinking about how to negotiate, but in the end, they admitted defeat faster than anyone else. Each one of them is really unique. When it's our turn, if we don't do something new, I'm afraid we won't be able to leave a deep impression on the Kenshin. Today, of the 8 forces that came to the Radiant Palace, the Feng clan, the Lan clan, the Jiang clan, and the War God clan had already expressed their stance and formed an alliance with the Kenshin. Only the 100 Refinement Ancient Sect, the Shimi Paradise, the Raging Flame Paradise, and the Xia clan had yet to express their stance. Unfortunately, the 4 patriarchs and sect masters were seated next to the War God clan's patriarch. As for the War God clan leader, he had a valiant personality and was never afraid of offending others. He was a true battle maniac. After Ji Tianqing promised the War God clan benefits in front of everyone, the War God clan leader threw the jade slip to the Wuxia clan leader beside him. The Wuxia clan occupied the Raging Flame Grotto within the Raging Wind region. The dark-skinned and muscular Wuxia clan leader held the jade slip with an aggrieved expression. He looked at the Iron Tower like War God clan leader and originally wanted to grumble a little, but he still held it in. Things had already developed to such a stage, and if they were to incur enmity with the War God clan and make the Kenshin see them in a different light, that wasn't a wise move. Hence, Wuxia clan leader could only bear with his grievances as he read out the alliance agreement in a lively voice. The originally dull and rigid alliance agreement content was read out in cadence by that emotional voice of his, rising and falling, which made one's blood boil. The few clan leaders and many strong practitioners were all smiling as they looked at him, their expressions and gazes were somewhat amused. The few forces who had already formed an alliance were all thinking in their hearts that they had all been trapped, so don't even think of escaping. The 3 forces who had not read out the alliance agreement were muttering in their hearts. Old fellow, you're putting in so much effort, don't you feel that you're exaggerating? You're at least the Wuxia clan leader, a 9th stage realm god king expert, where's your face? Most importantly, you've already displayed everything that you can, so what should we do? Half a quarter of an hour later, Wuxia clan leader finished reading out the alliance agreement and obtained Heavenly Dao's verification. Ji Tianqing also promised benefits in front of everyone. There weren't any surprises and the treatment was the same as the previous few forces. Wuxia clan leader was still hesitating whether to return the jade token to Ji Tianqing or pass it to Cave Lord Shimi, who was beside him. Cave Lord Shimi was naturally the owner of Shimi Grotto Heaven. This force originated from ancient times and was most adept at scouting for information, possessing one of the top intelligence forces in the boundless heaven continent. Immediately following that, something that made everyone surprised happened. Wuxia clan leader had yet to decide who to pass the jade token to when Cave Lord Shimi stood up and spoke out clearly, "There's no need for the jade token. Earlier I heard the few clan leaders read it out and this seat has already memorized it." After that, he started to read out the alliance agreement which was over 1,000 words based on his memory. Many god kings in the main hall were shocked. "There's such a thing. Impressive, impressive. Sure enough, it's unique and unique. You bastards, you've really racked your brains and put in a lot of effort. Walking the path of others and leaving them with no way out. It's over, we have one less path left. We have to quickly think of a way." The few forces that had already formed an alliance were all smiling as they watched the show and commented. The two forces that had yet to form an alliance were becoming more and more anxious as they racked their brains to think of a new idea. Not long after, Cave Lord Shimi finished reading the alliance agreement. There were close to 1,000 words of content, and not a single word was missing. The few elders and protectors of Shimi Grotto Heaven clapped their hands with pride. The people of 100 Refinement Ancient Sect and Xia clan were even more dumbfounded, and their expressions became even weirder. What was there to applaud and be proud of in such a humiliating and sullen way of forming an alliance? Weren't they all full of confidence and arrogance before coming here, insisting on scraping off a few layers of Kenshin's skin? Why were all of them so shameless now? Chapter 4079. Cave Lord Shimi's body emitted a golden light, and a Tao rhythm appeared above his head. Ji Tianqing was too lazy to continue acting. He did not even feel touched and directly promised to give Shimi Eden benefits. After it ended, only the 100 Refinement Ancient Sect and the Xia clan remained. Everyone's gaze landed on Su Bailian and Xia clan head. Everyone wanted to see who would be the first to announce the alliance agreement. In the end, Su Bailian's skin was thick enough. While Xia clan head was still hesitating, he stood up. He looked at Ji Tianqing and asked, "Kenshin, you haven't forgotten our previous agreement, right?" Once he said that, Xia clan head quivered. He looked at Su Bailian with a gaze filled with anger and jealousy. He thought in his heart, "Damn it. You old foxes, when did you contact Kenshin beforehand and even discuss the conditions? Before today, I have never even met Kenshin. I didn't even discuss any additional conditions. Isn't this a huge loss?" Ji Tianqing nodded at Su Bailian and said calmly, "After today's alliance, I can immediately fulfill our previous agreement." Hearing such a sincere reply, Su Bailian was completely relieved. He no longer hesitated. He picked up the jade letter and started reading the alliance agreement. Not long after, he finished reading the alliance agreement and officially formed an alliance with Ji Tianqing. After the heaven and earth anomaly ended, Ji Tianqing also promised in front of everyone that he would reward the 100 Refinement Ancient Sect with a piece of land and allow them to develop their forces in the surrounding 10 regions. The 100 Refinement Ancient Sect had also successfully formed an alliance. Only the Xia clan was left in the hall, becoming the focus of everyone. Everyone understood that since the situation had developed to this stage, Kenshin's power had already been established. The Xia clan could not resist and could only agree. At this point, if Xia clan had still wanted to discuss any conditions, he would only be humiliating himself. Furthermore, he had to think of something new. If he could not think of any good ideas, directly reading the alliance agreement would be too boring. Everyone had such thoughts as they quietly looked at Xia clan head, waiting to see how he would act. To everyone's surprise, clan leader Xia gave them a pleasant surprise. He held the jade slip in his hand, but he was not in a hurry to read the treaty. Instead, he said to Ji Tianqing, "Kenshin, you went to the Xia clan more than 1,000 years ago. During that exchange of pointers, my Xia clan's disciples were not as skilled as others, and many of them were injured. Since then, there has been no interaction between us. Logically speaking, you don't owe the Xia clan a debt of gratitude, but this time, when you raised your arm and called for help, this seat still rushed over to support you. In my opinion, you should show some kind of reaction, no matter how you look at it. Only then will I be able to appease my clansmen, especially those who were injured by you. No one would have thought that Xia clan head would be so stubborn at the last moment and make a request to Ji Tianqing. Even though Xia clan leader had already softened his tone and lowered his demands. However, in the eyes of many experts, this was very unwise. If Ji Tianqing rejected him, then the Xia clan would be in an awkward position. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing did not get angry, nor did he reject him in front of everyone. He asked calmly, "What request does clan leader Xia have? If it's not too excessive, this seat can consider it." Seeing that he had relented, clan leader Xia was obviously relieved. The other leaders who had already formed an alliance felt unbalanced. They envied clan leader Xia for daring to say this, but they were also worried that the Xia clan would gain more benefits because of this. Clan leader Xia pondered for a moment, then discussed with the protectors and elders. Only then did he say, "Kenshin, our Xia clan is located in a remote corner of the Dong'an region. That region is relatively barren, and cultivation resources are scarce. However, the neighboring Jiuxiong region has more abundant cultivation resources. Therefore, we hope that after we complete our mission, we can control the Dong'an region and Jiuxiong region." Clan leader Xia was very smart. He did not open his mouth like a lion and ask for 7 or 8 regions like he had imagined. He only wanted one of the surrounding regions. It was not too excessive, and he could still gain enough benefits. However, before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Ji Tianqing. "Clan leader Xia, your request is a bit excessive." Ji Tianqing raised his hand and pointed at Nangong Buhua, Lan Wuji, and the clan leader of the Divine Phoenix clan. He said in a dignified tone, "Today, this seat will treat all the clans and sects equally. There will be no discrimination. This seat will also promise everyone the same benefits, including the Nangong clan. If this seat is extra generous and gives the Xia clan an extra region, what will these friends of the clans and sects think?" Nangong Buhua, Nangong Nihuang, and the others were the first to express their agreement. "That's right. Young Master Long Tian has always been fair and just. I hope that clan leader Xia will not break the rules." "Xia clan leader, may I take the liberty to say something? If everyone is like you and asks for more territory from the Sword God, how would the Sword God deal with it? Can you still guarantee fairness? I'm afraid that no matter how the Kenshin distributes the territories, everyone will have resentment in their hearts. Furthermore, we have just formed an alliance today and have to face countless dangers and killings. We haven't achieved anything yet we are asking for territories here. I'm afraid it's not appropriate, right?" After the people of the Nangong clan finished speaking, the clan leader of the Divine Phoenix clan, Lan Wuji, and Su Bai Lian also expressed their opinions. Everyone was treated the same, so of course, they would not agree to the Xia clan getting an extra region. The Xia clan leader was speechless and his expression turned ugly. The protectors and elders of the Xia clan were also enraged. They felt ashamed and resentful. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing spoke in time and gave the Xia clan a way out. "Clan leader Xia, I hope you can understand that this seat is giving everyone the same treatment and maintaining fairness. This is for everyone's good. On top of that, I'm afraid you, the patriarchs, and the sect leaders are all confused. There are clearly hundreds of regions in the boundless heaven continent. After we overthrow the rule of the Azura God Emperor, this seat will be able to control all the regions. Under such circumstances, it's not a problem to give each force 3 to 5 regions. Why is this seat so stingy and only give each force 1 region?" Without a doubt, this was a question that all the forces were very concerned about. Even Nangong Buhua had doubts in his heart. It was just that he chose to believe in Ji Tianqing and never asked. Everyone looked at Ji Tianqing with burning eyes, waiting for an answer. Ji Tianqing explained with a smile, the reason why we opposed Emperor God Xiu Luo and formed an alliance to overthrow him was because he was able to cover the sky with one hand and monopolize the power, causing the people of the boundless heaven continent to suffer. Our goal is to return peace to the boundless heaven continent and restore the freedom of the people so that all living beings can live and work in peace. If each force can be given several regions, their power will definitely increase exponentially. At that time, it will definitely form a state of fragmentation. After a long time, it will be inevitable that there will be friction and conflicts. If a war were to break out, the common people would suffer again. Even if we overthrow the rule of the Azura God Emperor, we will also bring war. What's the point of our alliance then? Chapter 4080. The divine kings in the hall were all smart people. When Ji Tianqing said it, everyone understood. He wanted to strictly control the power of the various clans and not allow the situation of the heroes separating themselves to appear. Only then could he ensure the peace of the boundless heaven continent. Some people agreed with this, but there were also people who objected to it. Su Balian frowned and asked, Kenshin, when the time comes, you'll be the overlord of the boundless heaven continent. With you overseeing this place, the various clans and top forces won't dare to wantonly start a war, right? This question asked the hearts of many powerhouses. Many people nodded in agreement. Ji Tianqing smiled and explained, I've long guessed that you all would think this way. But do you all think that my goal is only to save the boundless heaven continent? There's also the Reincarnation Island, Firmament, Qiankuan, and the Primal Chaos Continent. They're all under the dark rule of the four great god emperors. The people of those four continents also yearn for light and freedom. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. They all revealed expressions of disbelief. Some people even sucked in a cold breath. Very clearly, Ji Tianqing was saying that not only did he want to save the boundless heaven continent, but he also wanted to save the entire divine realm. He wanted to overthrow the rule of the five great god emperors and completely start a war with the five great god emperors. What kind of breadth of mind and boldness was this? Naturally, if Ji Tianqing saved the five continents and controlled the entire divine realm, he would be too busy. There were still many things to do. It was simply impossible for him to oversee the boundless heaven continent. In this way, it made sense for him to deliberately suppress the power of the various clans. The few clan leaders and sect masters were silent. Clan leader Xia was also speechless. He still felt a little sullen. He wanted to fight for more benefits for the Xia clan, but he did not know what to say. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing was more understanding and did not let clan leader Xia be embarrassed for too long. He continued, originally, we've only taken the first step in the plan to get rid of the rebels. I didn't want to tell everyone about this so early and so hastily. But since everyone has asked here, there's no harm in letting you know in advance. Clan leader Xia, I can't fulfill the conditions you requested. However, this seat can help the Xia clan by correcting their cultivation techniques and secret manuals. I can also give pointers to a few promising talents. What do you think? If it were any other godly king who said that he wanted to help the Xia clan revise their secret scriptures, the Xia clan would definitely suspect that the other party was trying to steal the Xia clan's inherited cultivation technique. However, none of the experts present would doubt Ji Tianqing's words. After all, the various factions did not produce a peak divine king. Kenshin was a peak divine king 1,000 years ago. Now, he had returned to the peak. Would he still fancy those low-level cultivation method manuals? From another point of view, Kenshin helping the Xia clan revise their cultivation techniques was definitely a huge profit for the Xia clan. What's more, Kenshin had even promised to give pointers to the Xia clan's talents. Everyone present knew that anyone who could receive Kenshin's personal guidance, as long as they weren't a blockhead, would soar to the sky. For example, Bai Feng of the Phoenix clan was a living example. Didn't you see that Bai Feng was already dead set on following Kenshin? She didn't even want to return to the divine phoenix grotto heaven. Although Ji Tianqing's promise was very beneficial to the Xia clan, it wasn't too unreasonable. The other 7 factions wouldn't be jealous either. It was the best of both worlds. The Xia clan head also knew how to act appropriately. He accepted Ji Tianqing's promise and bowed to express his gratitude. Next, he took out the jade letter and read the alliance agreement in front of everyone. After he finished reading the alliance agreement, the contents of the oath were approved by the heavenly Tao. His entire body lit up with golden light. Tao rhythms appeared above his head. Thunder boomed above the divine light palace. Ji Tianqing followed the procedure and made a promise in front of everyone. He would reward the Xia clan with a piece of land and allow the Xia clan to develop their forces and businesses in the surrounding 10 regions. At this point, the 9 factions, including the Nangong clan, had formed an alliance with Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing, the 9 clan heads, and the sect head bowed and thanked each other. They all called each other brothers and chatted with each other. No matter how many thoughts they had previously, they all smiled and wiped away their enmity. They appeared to be very harmonious and united. Next, everyone began to discuss the specific plan of action. The leader of the rebel alliance was naturally Ji Tianqing. The deputy leader was, of course, Nangong Buhua. Ji Tianqing had the authority to control and deploy the 9 factions. He also had the obligation to protect the 9 factions from being destroyed. However, the specific plan of action and where to start dealing with the powerhouses under the Azura God Emperor was still up for discussion. After an hour of discussion, the leaders of the few factions all agreed that it was a good choice to start from the Yenshu Grotto Heaven. Each faction would use half a month to bring their own elites, at least 1,000-strong army, to the Yenshu Grotto Heaven. Then, Ji Tianqing would lead everyone to take the initiative to sweep through the various regions and eliminate the forces under the Azura God Emperor. Ji Tianqing and Nangong Buhua didn't express their opinions. In fact, they didn't agree with everyone's suggestion. This was because they both knew that each faction didn't want to be alone. They would rather stay together for protection. However, this wasn't efficient at all. As long as the Meng Shuai and the imperial tutor weren't stupid, they could easily come up with a countermeasure. Seeing that the 6 clan leaders and suzerain had reached a consensus, only the divine phoenix clan leader and Lan Wuji remained silent and didn't express their opinions. According to the principle of majority rule, they naturally had to listen to the 6 clan leaders and suzerain's suggestion and act together. However, in this alliance, Ji Tianqing was the leader. He had the absolute right to speak. There were no principles or rules. Seeing that everyone was still discussing, Ji Tianqing raised his hand to signal for everyone to be quiet. He said in a dignified tone, "Although it's safe to act together and our forces are concentrated, it's inefficient. We need to defeat the Meng Shuai and the imperial tutor as soon as possible. If we drag this out and give them enough time to plan, it'll be more difficult for us to act. Therefore, I've decided to split into 2 groups. One group will be led by me, followed by the Phoenix clan, the 100 Smelting Ancient sect, and the Yuchi clan. The other group will be led by Nangong Buhua, followed by the Lan clan, the Battle God clan, the Xia clan, the Shimi Grotto Heaven, and the Jiang clan." Hearing Ji Tianqing's arrangement, the leaders of the 8 factions were confused. Ji Tianqing was only leading 3 clans, but Nangong Buhua was leading 4 clans and the 100 Smelting Ancient sect. Everyone frowned and pondered. What was his intention? Did he think that he was strong enough to take on the other 5 clans and the 100 Smelting Ancient sect with only 3 clans? Furthermore, the Lan clan, the Battle God clan, and the Jiang clan were obviously loyal to him, but he arranged for them to be under Nangong Buhua's command. Was he trying to stabilize the situation so that Nangong Buhua wouldn't be able to control them? After all, the Lan clan, the Battle God clan, and the Jiang clan wouldn't make things difficult for Nangong Buhua because of him. Thinking of this, the leaders of the various factions were relieved. Then, Nangong Buhua asked in a serious tone, "Alliance leader, other than eliminating the forces under the Azura God Emperor, do we need to attack the leaders of the various regions?" Chapter 4081. Nangong Buhua's question was also the concern of the clan leaders and sect masters. Ji Tianqing already had an answer in his heart and answered without hesitation, "If those territorial masters obstruct or resist, we will try our best to capture them. If there is no way to kill them. If those territorial masters know what's good for them, there is no need to make things difficult for them. After all, after the Azura God Emperor's rule is overthrown, the 100 territories still need those territorial masters to maintain peace and stability." His answer laid out the bottom line and the criteria for the operation of quelling rebels. Nangong Buhua and the 8 leaders cupped their fists and bowed, acknowledging the order. The meeting was about to come to an end. The leaders of the 8 forces stayed behind and sent messages back to their respective clans and sects to gather their elite disciples at the Yenshu Grotto Heaven. Ji Tianqing had also set a rule for the gathering of people to prevent them from being selfish and unwilling to put in more effort. Each force had to gather at least 1,000 people, of which there should be no less than 20 divine kings and 200 upper divine lords. This was a high requirement, but it was not too harsh. At least, the 8 forces and the Nangong clan all met this requirement. Of course, if the 9 forces met this requirement, there would still be a small number of divine kings and upper divine lords left to guard their grotto heavens. Seeing that the matter was settled, everyone was about to disperse and leave the Great Light Hall. At this moment, a guard's voice came from outside the Great Light Hall, and the door opened with a creaking sound. A silver-armored messenger guard held a jade slip with a solemn expression and quickly stepped into the Great Light Hall, heading straight for Ji Tianqing. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the Great Light Hall became heavy. Everyone's eyes were focused on the messenger guard, and a bad premonition arose in their hearts. As expected, the messenger guard came to the steps of the throne and knelt on one knee, reporting to Ji Tianqing, "Alliance Master, I have just received a message from the front. Please take a look." This person was the captain of the guards, and he was very clever. Seeing that the experts of the various forces were present, he did not directly explain what had happened. The leaders of the 8 forces were somewhat displeased, but there was nothing wrong with that. They only hoped that after Ji Tianqing looked at the information in the jade strip, he would let them know about it. Unexpectedly, Ji Tianqing didn't take the communication jade slip. He said calmly, "Today, we are all allies, allies worthy of trust and reliance." As long as it was military news and did not involve personal secrets, there was no harm in speaking directly. After all, timely communication and discussion is the foundation of trust. The messenger guard was startled for a moment, and then a look of admiration appeared in his eyes. Nangong Buhua was the first to applaud. Lan Wuji, the Divine Phoenix clan leader, Jiang Chuyun, and the others all nodded in agreement. It was obvious that Ji Tianqing's words had touched the bottom of their hearts, and it was also what they wanted to hear the most. The messenger guard no longer hesitated. He held the jade slip with both hands and read in a serious tone, "Last night, we received accurate news that our 9th elder and 8th elder were unfortunately captured by Meng Shuai and Qi Yan in the process of carrying out a mission." After hearing the news, the hall fell silent for a moment, and then there was a burst of low voices and discussions. The people of the various large clans and the 100 refinement ancient sect did not know the inside story, but the people of the Nangong clan knew very well. The 9th elder, Nangong Ao, and the 8th elder had been ordered by Ji Tianqing to carry out a mission and help Ji Tianqing draw up a death list. This required the 2 elders to risk their lives and do their best to gather information. The death list was also very important. It was the guiding light of the rebel alliance, and it could save a lot of time for everyone to carry out their mission. Now, the mission was only halfway done, and Nangong Ao and the 8th elder had been captured at the same time. Without a doubt, the mission of drawing up a death list could not be carried out. The leaders of the various clans all asked Nangong Buhua what had happened. Nangong Buhua could only explain that Ji Tianqing had been planning and preparing for more than a month ago. Nangong Ao and the 8th elder had led 80% of the Nangong clan's intelligence network to draw up a death list. All the God Kings present knew that the capture of the 2 elders at this time would cause a lot of damage to the operation. At this moment, everyone was worried, and they could not help but discuss in low voices. "Sigh, this is really a bad start." "That's right. We just came up with a plan, but we haven't even started, and we've already met with such a setback." No wonder the Meng Shuai and the imperial tutor did not make any big moves in the past 2 months when they sensed the danger. It turns out that they secretly took action and caught our eyes first. The Meng Shuai and Qi Yan are very cunning. They only captured the 2 elders of the Nangong clan and did not kill them directly. This way, we will be in a passive position and will not be able to fight back. Seeing that everyone was discussing, Ji Tianqing said in a dignified tone, "Everyone, do not worry. We have only just started our operation, and this setback is expected. When we officially take action in the future, who knows how much more danger and killing we will encounter. It will be even more intense than this." Hearing this, everyone thought that it made sense, so they stopped talking and looked at him, waiting for his decision. Ji Tianqing continued, "The Meng Shuai and the imperial tutor are both cunning foxes. They chose to capture Nangong Ao and the 8th elder alive, so they must have a follow-up plan. Although Nangong Ao is my friend, and I am worried about his safety, we must not panic. But we can't lose our footing. Let's keep calm and see how Meng Shuai and the imperial preceptor make their moves before we make a decision. In addition, there are several ancient clans and dozens of top factions who are still watching the situation and wavering. Today's incident is the first test we have to solve. If we can't even pass this test, how are we going to deal with the Meng Shuai and the imperial tutor? If we can successfully pass this trial, the clans and forces that are watching from the sidelines should have more confidence in us." After listening to his analysis, the clan leaders and sect masters calmed down and stopped worrying. The clan leaders thought of a question, and one of them asked, "Alliance leader, if this old man is so bold as to ask, what will you do if more ancient clans and sects come to join you and want to form an alliance with you after we resolve this crisis?" When Lan Wuji asked this question, the hall fell silent. Everyone looked at Ji Tianqing, waiting for his answer. Ji Tianqing answered without hesitation, "The goal of our alliance is to overthrow the Shura God Emperor's rule and save the people of the boundless heaven continent. If those ancient clans and factions also come for this goal, I welcome like-minded people to join. However, they have already exceeded the 1-month deadline I gave them. Therefore, in my heart, the treatment that they receive is absolutely not as important as the treatment that everyone present receives." Chapter 4082. Ji Tianqing's words were rather general and did not have a specific standard. But Lan Wuji, the patriarchs, and sect masters felt inexplicably much better when they heard this. Although the treatment and benefits we received were far from what we had originally expected, we formed the first alliance with Kenyan. However, since we were the first to form an alliance with the Sword God, we are naturally the people he trusts the most. We took a huge risk and took a gamble to be the first to form an alliance with Kenshin. This is the treatment we deserve. Those clans and forces that joined later can't be compared to us. Such a thought flashed through the minds of the experts. Now that things had come to this, the remaining worries in everyone's hearts dissipated. Ji Tianqing waved his hand to dismiss the messenger guard and said to the patriarchs and sect masters, "I will deal with the matter of the 2 elders being captured. You all act according to the original plan and do not delay." The patriarch of the Divine Phoenix clan, Lan Wuji, and the others all bowed and said, yes, in unison before leaving the light hall one after another. As they left, the patriarchs were still discussing something in low voices. On the other side, the internal affairs elder of the Nangong clan had already arranged accommodations for the experts of the 8 forces. The experts of each force lived in a palace and kept a distance from each other. After the people of the 8 forces had left, the elders of the Nangong clan also left one after another. In the light hall, only Ji Tianxing, Nangong Buhua, and Nangong Ni Huang were left. It was only now that Ji Tianxing frowned, his face became grave, and a trace of worry flashed across his eyes. Nangong Ni Huang could not help but say, young master, are you worried about Nangong Ao and the 8th elder? Ji Tianxing nodded, indicating that he agreed. Nangong Ni Huang comforted in a gentle voice, don't worry, didn't you just say it? Meng Shuai and Qi Yan naturally have other intentions for capturing them alive, so they will not be in danger for the time being. Nangong Buhua shook his head and said in a heavy tone, this should be just young Master Long's words to comfort people. The 2 elders are only safe for the time being. Furthermore, Nangong Ao may not die, but the 8th elder may not. Nangong Ni Huang immediately frowned and asked worriedly and doubtfully, why? Ji Tianxing explained, the Meng Shuai and the imperial tutor are not so small. They will not target the 2 elders. Their target is me. Nangong Ao is my friend, and he is still useful to the Meng Shuai and the imperial tutor, but the 8th elder. Nangong Ni Huang was smart and immediately understood what he meant. Young master, you mean, if Meng Shuai and the emperor's preceptor want to extort a confession by torture or intimidate us, they will definitely choose to kill the 8th elder. Will they keep Nangong Ao and use his life to force you to show yourself? Not young Master Long, Buhua, SSS Yongzes, young, have as. Kill young Master, S. How sinister and despicable. Nangong Ni Huang was so angry that her face was as cold as frost, and her eyes shone with a cold light. Ji Tianxing said calmly, if I am not wrong, the Meng Shuai will send a message to me within 2 days at the latest. They will use Nangong Ao as a hostage to force me to show myself. Nangong Ni Huang's face was full of anxiety. She quickly asked, young master, what should we do? Do you have a good plan? Ji Tianxing smiled coldly and said, how can I have the best of both worlds when dealing with such a despicable but practical method? I can't sit by and watch Nangong Ao be killed. I must save him. Master Nangong, please organize all the information sent back by the 2 elders and give it to me immediately. I will set out tonight to rescue Nangong Ao. Nangong Buhua and his daughter were both surprised and quickly tried to dissuade him. No. Absolutely not. Young Master Long, you know that the Meng Shuai will set up a massive ambush and try to kill you. We must not let you die. Young Master, we know that you are very worried about Nangong Ao's safety, but you are the leader of the rebel alliance and the hope of all of us. Nothing can happen to you. I believe that even if Nangong Ao knows about this, he will not agree with your decision. Yes. There are no cowards in the Nangong clan. Nangong Ao would rather commit suicide than put you in a desperate situation. Both father and daughter were a little agitated. They blocked Ji Tianxing from both sides, refusing to let him take the risk no matter what. Ji Tianxing was both touched and amused. He quickly comforted the father and daughter and said, don't be so emotional. Calm down and think about what I just said. First, with my strength, except for the 5 god emperors, no one can hurt me. Even the Meng Shuai and the imperial tutor together are not enough. Second, the Meng Shuai may need 1 or 2 days to negotiate with me, and I will set out tonight. He will not be prepared at all. I will sneak into their encirclement and rescue Nangong Ao a day or 2 in advance. Of course, the most important thing is that only the 2 of you know about this. You must keep it a secret. After listening to his analysis, Nangong Buhua and Nangong Nihuang finally calmed down. The father and daughter thought about it carefully and realized that it was indeed reasonable. Most of their worries dissipated. Nangong Buhua thought for a moment and said, "Young Master Long, your analysis is very reasonable. I also believe in your strength and means. But this is your prediction. What if the Meng Shuai does not do it?" Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "No matter what the Meng Shuai wants to do, I have to rescue Nangong Ao first." Nangong Nihuang said again, "Young master, it is too dangerous for you to act alone. I want to go with you. Nangong Ao is not only your friend, but also my clansman and elder brother." Ji Tianqing turned to look at her and said seriously, "First, I am not alone. My family and friends are all in my God artifact space. Second, it is more secretive for me to act alone. The probability of successfully rescuing Nangong Ao is higher. If there is someone following me, not to mention you, even a ninth heaven realm god king like your father might become a burden." This was another way to tell Nangong Nihuang that she would be a burden if she followed him. She was instantly embarrassed. The father and daughter were still a little worried and wanted to remind Ji Tianqing of something. But Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said solemnly, "Those few clan leaders and Su Balian will definitely discuss in private how I will solve this problem. I hope you can keep it a secret from me and not let a fourth person know. Besides, when I am not in the Yenshu Grotto Heaven, Nangong family head, you have to preside over the situation. There must not be any trouble." Nangong Buhua knew the seriousness of the matter. The rebel alliance had just been formed and had not been tested. There was no cooperation, tacit understanding, and loyalty. Therefore, the next few days would be a very crucial period. Although it was dangerous for Ji Tianqing to rescue Nangong Ao, it was also very important for him to stay in the Yenshu Grotto Heaven to preside over the situation. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.